with our December 8th Town Council meeting. Welcome. Before we get too far into this, I want to read this. In accordance with the Governor Newsom Executive Order N-2920, remote public participation is allowed in the following ways. Town Council meetings are available to be YouTube at http://bit.ly/JKOP8P. Good luck with that. Or you can go on our website and probably find it there, how to get on YouTube. Public comment may be submitted by phone during the meeting prior to the close of the public comment on an item by calling, everything's area code 530-872-5951. Again, 872-5951. I or the mayor at that point will indicate. So if you're interested in doing that, please call in early and get yourself in queue, or at least let us know that you're interested in commenting. Okay? And we're going to stand to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and Councilmember Jones will do the invocation. Please remain standing.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father, we come to you tonight and ask that you be with our town, be with this council as we deliberate on behalf of the residents here. Give us wisdom and help us make good decisions. And also, as COVID is ramping up across the country, Lord, we ask that you, our employees, our residents, our council members, our first responders, safe. Pray that vaccines would be available soon so that all of this can go away and our businesses can get back to normal. We ask all this in your name. Amen.
And thank you. Okay, roll call.
Roll call.
Here.
Councilmember Schuster is absent. And Mayor Boland.
Here. Okay, so first off, we want to approve the minute of the October 13th and November 2nd and November 10th regular and November 19th special meeting.
I'll move approval of those minutes.
I'll second.
Motion by, seconded by Crowder. Approval of the minutes. Vice Mayor Crowder.
Aye.
Councilmember Jones.
Aye.
Councilmember Schuster is absent. Councilmember Zuccolillo.
Aye.
And Mayor Boland.
Aye. So I get to read a year in review. This is going to be fun. Forgotten about. So we're going to get through this quickly. Before I do that, I just want to thank everybody for their help this year. I appreciate the council. Like I've always said, I think this council works good together, very diverse in thinking and stuff, but we come to good conclusions. So thank you for your work this year. Been a lot to do. And I thank everybody for their trust in me as mayor. Go by lightly for me. I know that's a position that is a trusted position. So thank you for that. So year in review. January 27th, 2020, the Building Resiliency Center was opened to the public, which houses the town and community development department and is designed for one-stop shop for rebuilding. Early in June, the Skyway Black Olive signal was complete. Tri-County has donated $171,000 towards the purchase of a new fire engine. In 2020, the town of Paradise rehabilitation funds to respond to the damage of the Camp Fire. Lauren Gill retired as manager after 35 years of service to the town and was succeeded by Kevin Phillips, former PID, in September. Welcome to him. With the help of the state's Housing and Community Development Department, the town was made eligible for a part of the $250 million allocated to Butte County for the housing assistance as part of the Community Development Block Grant program. Town Council voted to extend the interim housing urgency ordinance until December 31st, 2021, provided specific requirements as long as those are met. The Community Housing Improvement Program, Paradise Community Village, broke ground in October, which is moving along very well. The Town Housing Department is currently assisting 42 households with the rebuilding process and has assisted 2 households in purchasing a home. Rose Tryon, Steve Woody Colton, and Greg Bolin were elected to 1 4-year term to the council. The town purchased a lot on Pearson Road for relocation and construction of a fire engine. 2. To date, PG&E has underground 50 miles of line in Paradise. The Butte Strong Foundation supplied the town with a $50,000 grant for a broadband feasibility study, which allows for the assessment of broadband services to be brought to the town to help better provide internet service. The town entered into an agreement with the State Water Resources Control Board for the Campfire Septic Tank Replacement Pilot Program. I'll say that really fast. With the help of CMA Church, the town was able to restore the AM 1500, which is the town's official radio channel for community and emergency updates. North Valley Community Foundation approved $1 million for permit reduction grant to a program that helps reduce the cost of permits for those seeking to rebuild, for those that lost their in the fire. NASA honored the town by etching the, I'd forgotten about this, it's a plaque right out there, I don't know why I do, but honored the town by etching the town of Paradise and Paradise Strong on their latest Mars rover and presented the town with a commemorative plaque, which hangs in the town hall by the chamber, by the council chamber. In early November, the town of Paradise was awarded a $1.8 million grant through the Economic Development Administration Paradise Transportation Master Plan, which will help further the goal of objectives of long-term recovery plan. In fall of 2020, council approved the plans and specifications for the Alma and Gap Closure Project, which aims to revitalize downtown infrastructure by installing walking paths, lighting, landscape, and performing major road repairs. Construction is expected to start in 2021. Close to 300 businesses have opened and or operated in Paradise since the county. In fall of 2020, staff initiated the first of its kind PSPS response program, deploying 16 mobile generators and signalization intersections, ensuring the highest level of safety possible during the planned power outages. And those we don't like to use. We like them to stay in storage, but they're nice when we need them. As of November 25th, 1,349 building applications have been received. 1,217 building permits have been issued, and 487 homes have been rebuilt and received a certificate of occupancy. That's big. I mean, that many people didn't think we'd be there for years. I'm talking 4 or 5 years. So that is big. All these are big, but that's something that people did not expect. Thanks to our Public Works team, road striping has been completed on Upper Skyway, Upper Clark, Upper Pence, Bushman, Billy, Wagstaff, and many other intersections throughout town. And that is noticed. It looks great. With grant monies from the North Valley Community Foundation, the town was able to hire a grant administrator. Adventist Health opened a rapid care clinic in Paradise. A hazard mitigation advanced planning grant was awarded for an early warning system design and scope plan, which was approved by the council in November. On November 17, 2020, the first tree was felled in the government hazard tree removal program. That was the tree on purpose. Yes, that way. There's many of them felled, but a Tier 1 priority and long-term recovery plan, and that is much needed. Police department tasers have been replaced, and department training for their new devices to set at the beginning of this month. The department has also purchased 6 new handheld radios. With a grant from the Butte Strong, PD will be swearing in their newest officer, Katie Weber, December 7th, which bring the department to 17 sworn officers. That is also a big accomplishment. Paradise Recreation District has reinstated astronomy on the lake. It's proven to be a success and extremely popular. Was commemorated with the Paradise Revival Festival, the Oak and Native Tree Giveaway, a moment of reflection, a Hope of Daffodil Art Show, the Ridge Wellness Project, and a show for the film Joy Will Find a Way. And last but not least, the Public Works Director and Town Engineer Mark Maddox was recognized for one of the top 25 newsmakers by Engineering New Record. Congratulations to him. We want to see the magazine. So, again, a lot of those, they happened, but I had forgotten about many of those, so that was pretty cool. I'd like to do a recognition for Council Member Schuster and Zuccolillo. So, for Michael Zuccolillo. Michael Zuccolillo has served the community of Paradise as a Paradise Town Council member commencing December 13th, 2016 and expiring 8th, 2020. And whereas Michael served as a Water Advisory Committee, Ad hoc Committee, Paradise Solid Waste Committee, Butte County Continuum of Care Committee, and as liaison to the Paradise Irrigation District and the Paradise Recreation Park District. And whereas after the entire inventory of flags was lost in the campfire, Michael Zuccolillo worked with partners, organizations, and was instrumental in bringing the parade of flags back to the town of Paradise. That is cool. So thank you for that. That is always neat to see. Whereas the town council and the town of Paradise recognizes the valuable contribution to good government from the elected officials who spend countless hours in service of the town with limited compensation. And whereas through participation on the Paradise Town Council, Michael Zuccolillo greatly assisted the town of Paradise in the recovery process after the campfire and worked to bring the community together in a unified remembrance at the first anniversary commemoration. And whereas Michael Zuccolillo has generously devoted his time and energy for the public good and performed his duties as a Town of Paradise Council member with great commitment. I, therefore, Greg Boland, Mayor of Town of Paradise, hereby recognize and express appreciation to Michael Zuccolillo for his dedicated service to the Town of Paradise. We have this, and we also have a certificate of recognition, and this is from Michael also.
It's been an honor to serve. It's never what I thought it was. I think the campfire has really changed our little sleepy town. We used to be up here on council, arguing, not arguing, but, constructively talking about what were petty things. And then the campfire happened. We became the center of attention. All eyes were on Paradise. We had a lot to prove. And, we've had our disagreements here on council. We've come together for the good of the town. We've gotten the town moving in the right direction. It's been a pleasure serving with you. Rose and Woody, I wish you guys good luck. You're definitely not going to get your money out of this pay you, but it's a thankless job, but I think you guys will be great representatives for the town, and wish you guys all the best. So, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And Councilwoman Schuster's not with us, but I'm going to go ahead and read this anyway, because appreciation for her. Whereas Melissa Schuster has served the community of Paradise as a town council member commencing December 13th, 2016, and expiring the 8th of this month. And whereas Melissa Schuster served on the Mosquito Vector Control Board as liaison to the Paradise Recreation and Park District, she was appointed as the president of the Sacramento Valley Division of the League of California Cities to serve as a second regional representative, as well as selected to serve as advisory board on the newly formed Butte County Tourism Business Improvement District. They got to make these things easier to read, I'm telling you. And whereas Melissa Schuster was an important guide in the reestablishment of tourism and art and economic development in the town of Paradise in the years following the Camp Fire. And whereas Melissa Schuster initiated the town's adopting of the daffodil as the official town flower, making it a symbol of hope and revitalization. And whereas the town council and the town of Paradise recognize the valuable contribution of good government from elected officials who spend countless hours in the service of the town with limited compensation. And whereas Melissa Schuster has generously devoted her time and energy for the public good and performed her duties as a town Paradise member with thoughtfulness and professionalism. I now, therefore, Greg Boland, Mayor of Paradise, do hereby recognize and express appreciation to Melissa for dedicated service to the town of Paradise. And we do appreciate her, and she also has recognition from Assemblyman Gallagher and Senator Nielsen. We'll be giving that to her. Okay.
Before we move on, I have
Okay.
one.
Not on the list.
Well, this is for Mayor Boland. Whereas Greg Boland was elected by the unanimous vote of his peers to serve as mayor and presiding chair of the Paradise Town Council for a one-year term, and whereas Greg Boland guided the town with wisdom, professionalism, insight, and whereas Greg Boland was diligent in his commitment to the recovery of Paradise and effortlessly led the town through the beginning stages, some of the most critical projects designated in the such as and scoping plan, the road rehabilitation project, and the hazardous tree removal program. Whereas Greg Boland's proactive approach to leadership and unyielding loyalty to the people of Paradise has not only enabled but guaranteed a bright future. And whereas Greg Boland has well and faithfully discharged the duties of the mayor of the town of Paradise. Now therefore, I, Steve Crowder, Vice Mayor of the town of Paradise, hereby recognize and commend Greg Boland for his contributions to the betterment of our people. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the official seal of the town of Paradise to be affixed hereto this 8th day of December, 2020.
Thank you so much. And thank you again for the trust you put in me. I appreciate that. Okay, we're going to adopt resolution number 20-42, a resolution of the Town of Council election consolidated in the statewide general election held on results of such other matters as provided by law. We need to vote on this.
Yes, we do.
So I need a motion to accept.
I make a motion to accept.
Second.
Motion by Crowder, seconded by Zuccolillo.
Aye.
Councilmember John. Councilmember Schuster is absent. Councilmember Zuccolillo.
Aye.
And Mayor Boland.
Aye. What if I said no? No. Aye, yes. Okay. So now I believe you're taking over this part,
Well, I'm going to administer the oath to the three
so we're going to be administering the
council
oath,
members.
certificate of election. You want us all down there?
Ooh, I get speakerphone. Okay. If you could all please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Greg Boland. Go ahead. Do solemnly swear. And the Constitution of the United States.
Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
That I will bear true
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States.
to the Constitution of the United States
And the Constitution of California.
and the Constitution of the State of California.
That I take obligation
And
I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion.
or purpose of evasion,
That I will well
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
about
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations. Elbow.
Okay, I think now we take a 10-minute break.
Thank
Pretty cool. Yeah. Yes. I think the audio. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. No problem. We'll go back with it. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I can go anywhere. I'll miss you. Congratulations, Mayor.
Jody's got Melissa. Yeah, I might have Jody. And the plaque needs to go too. You know where I was going up?
I have the plaque for you,
Okay,
or the,
Yeah.
the proclamation.
yeah,
Yes, sir.
okay.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So let me. I'll try it.
But do you always have this way of
Yeah.
placing your stuff?
Like? I don't think. Oh, okay.
Reese's peanut butter cups. Oh my God, I feel like this
Suitable for framing, huh? Is that yours?
Okay.
Do these tilt or anything, or what?
Well,
Do these tilt?
Yeah, we do tilt.
They do?
Actually, there's some of them that they're still waiting for the
those right here?
Yes. I think that it would be- make it back.
Well, that's okay, I don't need to.
Hopefully.
There's nothing on it anyway.
There's nothing what?
Nothing on it anyway. I mean,
There will be.
okay. Oh, there's a picture. The water.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, one suggestion, just don't eat all the candy at once. It's a temptation.
What's that?
Don't eat all the candy at once.
Why not? More is here.
I put mine over there because I didn't want it.
Oh, is this yours? Or is this Mark's?
No.
No, those are Melissa's because they're vegan, but that was mine.
I think this
And
would
you
be
can
better
have
than
it.
on the side.
Huh?
Yes,
I don't know.
that's fine. Okay.
You get really good sound. With that. I mean, this could work too. That works.
Please tell her hi from me.
That works. Test one,
I
two.
will.
You like the other way? Leave it there?
You need a boom mic.
Yeah. We're not sure if this is the final.
It's a
Yeah.
cordless.
Like, do a transition to a TED Talk, you know? Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll work.
We'll try. Oh, goodness.
Okay. If everybody's partied enough, we'll get going again. Otherwise, yes, we won't get going again. We need Dina. Our leader. Yeah. No pressure.
What do you want? What do you need?
It's right here.
Okay.
I have it.
What's this for?
Welcome to WebEx. Enter your access code or meeting number.
And so the town attorney can.
We don't want him.
The meeting has not yet started. If you are the meeting host, enter the...
Please.
So I believe you reconvene the meeting. No pressure.
Okay, so we will reconvene the meeting at 6:28. And every year in December, the town council elects one council member to serve as mayor and one council member to serve as vice mayor.
You forgot the roll call. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you so much. I'm not used to this. Okay, roll call. Councilmember Boland,
Here.
Councilmember Crowder,
Here.
Councilmember Culleton,
Here.
Councilmember Jones,
Here.
Councilmember Tryon.
Here.
Thank you. Okay. Every year in December, the town council elects one council member to serve as mayor and one council member to serve as vice mayor for a one-year term. Any council member may be nominated for the office of mayor, including the council member who served as mayor during the previous year. Election requires the affirmative vote of at least 3 members of the council. The election process for the mayor and vice mayor is as follows. The mayor turns the meeting over to the clerk to act as presiding officer for selection of mayor for a one-year term. The town clerk opens the nominations for mayor. Any council member may nominate any other council member, no motion necessary. The town clerk asks for a motion, a second, and a council vote to close the nominations for mayor. And town clerk takes a roll call vote on each council member nominated in the order of nomination. When one council member receives a majority, 3 affirmative votes, he or she will be deemed selected as the mayor for a 1-year term, and there will be no further vote on any subsequent nominees. Then the town clerk will turn the meeting over to the new mayor as the presiding officer.
When one council member receives a majority, 3 affirmative votes.
If you're on the phone, could you mute, please?
And there will be no.
Thank you.
Thank you. The procedures for selection of vice mayor will be the same as items 2 through 5, which will be repeated by the new mayor as presiding officer. So with that, do I have any nominations for mayor?
I nominate Steve Crowder.
for mayor. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jody.
Who said
You
that?
can.
I nominate Steve Crowder for mayor.
That's funny.
So nominated Steve Crowder by Steve Culleton. Are there any other nominations?
I move, we close.
I'll second that.
Motion closed, Greg Boland, seconded by
Let's
George
vote.
Jones. All in favor of closing the nomination?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So with that being said, we'll do a roll call vote to nominate Steve Crowder as mayor. Roll call vote, Councilmember Boland,
Aye.
Councilmember Crowder,
Aye.
Councilmember Culleton,
Aye.
Councilmember Jones,
Aye.
and Councilmember Tryon.
Aye.
Steve Crowder is the mayor. Congratulations, and I'll turn the meeting over to you.
Well, hang on, hang on.
With glee. You're too happy, Greg.
You're not getting away without getting that.
Well, so I would like to open the nominations for vice mayor.
I'd like to nominate Jody.
Any
I'll
other-
second it.
Are there any other nominations?
I move, we close.
I'll second.
Greg Boland and Steve Crowder to close the nominations. All in favor of closing the nominations?
Aye.
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 Thank you. So we'll do a roll call vote for Councilmember Jones as vice mayor, Councilmember Boland,
Aye.
Councilmember Culleton,
Aye.
Councilmember Jones,
Aye.
Councilmember Tryon,
Aye.
and Mayor Crowder.
Aye.
Councilmember Jones is vice mayor.
I guess I get.
So,
Congratulations to both of you.
Yeah, thanks.
I am happy for you.
so we are on to campfire recovery updates. Hazardous tree removal, broadband housing, advocacy, disaster recovery in 2021, disaster recovery director Katie Simmons.
Good evening, new mayor, new vice mayor, and council. I believe I'm speaking directly into the microphone, correct? Great. So I'm pleased to present my monthly disaster recovery update just to help keep council posted on the many projects that we're managing in disaster recovery specifically, and to give you an understanding of how we are moving forward specifically with trees. So I'll start with that slide. We have the government hazard tree removal program. The state did announce the deadline to enroll is December 31st of this year. So the state is issuing some additional collateral, and we are working internally as well to make sure that public understands the significance of this deadline and they're prepared to address it if they have not enrolled yet. We are moving through the process of sending courtesy abatement notices to folks who have not enrolled yet and to those who have enrolled in the private program but have not complied. Next slide. So a big topic of conversation, of course, this week following the wind event is priorities for removing trees. We are working with the state on a process for the removal of immediate danger trees. These are trees that the town staff or on some occasions council members are notified of. A tree can become an immediate danger tree if we have a wind event and it cracks and starts to fall. So we are taking those calls through the tree advocates. I'm taking them as well, and we are forwarding those to the state. The second priority is structures that are occupied, homes and RVs. Third priority, active building sites. So we were at one property today, for example, that has a home that is almost finished with construction. Of course, a lot of personnel on site, and we had an immediate danger tree. So we're continuing to assess those. And then all ROEs. To date, as of last
Katie,
week.
can I
Yes.
ask a question
Sure.
about that? If people are in occupied structures, do they need to call into the ROE center, or do they know where all of those are? I've had a lot of questions about that.
Great question. So our staff is sending every couple of weeks an updated list of permits for properties to the state so that they can add those to the list. So if someone is in an occupied structure and they have a concern about an immediate threat tree, definitely give us a call. But if they're in an occupied structure or on a building site, the state is aware of both of those data points.
Okay, thank you.
So to date, as of last week, the total trees felled in the town of Paradise, 969. Estimated total trees of the 70,000 in the town of Paradise is 24,500. You may have seen the tree crews working around town. So we've done some press releases and some public noticing about road closures and some traffic delays throughout town. In some cases, the tree contractors are working contiguously along a stretch like Pence, for example, last week. And so folks could run into a couple of road closures or delays, even on one stretch. So we're asking for everybody's patience as we get these trees down. In some cases, like this weekend, we had some signals on flash just to allow the tree contractors to work safely. So we're doing our best to help everybody understand kind of the safety required for a lot of these tree removal sites so that they are making good decisions and we're protecting everybody's persons and property. The next slide. Private hazard tree removal. So the council did decide a couple of meetings ago to extend the deadline for private tree removal if a couple of conditions are met. One is if they have a contractor scheduled to remove the trees after December 4th, but before February 1st with certification, or if they have inspection scheduled after December 4th, but before February 1st, and they are certified clear of hazardous trees by that date. So the private hazard tree removal deadline did pass last week. So we are now working with folks who are enrolled but not compliant on the steps that they need to take to make sure they remove their trees on time. Next slide.
That's a little confusing with the people down there in Oroville, because they keep saying, well, you're past your date, you're supposed to have it done.
Yeah.
And I keep reminding them
Right.
that that date was extended as long as we have someone to do it.
So in the town of Paradise, yes, we did extend, the county did not.
Right.
So
they're negotiating between them.
So I would definitely encourage folks to call our tree advocates. They're really well versed in the regulations here in the town.
Right.
So if anyone gets stuck or has questions, give us a call.
Right.
So as I mentioned, we're working on lowering our abatement risk. So we know that we have, not necessarily 2,000 properties, but quite a few with hazardous trees who have not signed up for an ROE or have not removed trees on their own. So we are issuing these letters and fielding a lot of calls if people want to understand their next steps. In some cases, they say, my property is ineligible. I never had any trees to begin with, or a tree fell that you might have assessed from the roadside. And so we're having conversations with them about next steps. But we definitely want folks to understand, though, that December 31st, that ROE deadline is approaching. That deadline will not be extended. So if people have concerns about the ROE form, they want to understand duplication of benefits, the ROE Center is taking all those calls. Our tree advocates are also working with them on eligibility question if they're contesting the fact that we say they have hazardous trees when we have not entered their property and they say we don't. So again, call the tree advocates. Next slide. So this was our total outstanding properties by starting with the midpoint of this year, and you can see we're trending downward. We see a couple of bumps up and down really as properties change hands because that ROE does not stay with the owner. Does not stay with the property, it stays with the owner. So if a property is sold, a new ROE is required. So you can see that about 45% of property owners are enrolled in the government program. The good news is we're hovering at just about 10% of total properties in all of Paradise that are still outstanding. Next slide. So on rebuilding stats, I know you heard some of these on the year in review, but we are tracking at 1,363 applied, 498 certificates of occupancy. We may have hit that 500 mark already. On the multifamily side, 70 units rebuilt, and you can see that we are ticking up those numbers every week. Next slide. On the town housing program, we are assisting 43 households, 2 are in construction, 3 are signing loan documents, and 38 are working through the eligibility process. 28 of those applicants are currently living in RVs. I did run some numbers because we were checking the compliance rate on the urgency ordinance, the interim housing ordinance, as council made the decision to extend, and we are sitting at about 34% compliance with the temporary use permits that are issued against the permits that have been pulled and have been rebuilt. So I think that we're hopefully going to see that number tick up, and I'll continue to keep you updated as we get close to that mid-year deadline next year. Next slide. Broadband feasibility study will be coming to you next month, hopefully with a completed study. We're still working on the technical design components with our contractors, looking at the requirements for that trench if we want to network all of our town buildings, looking at sections for commercial industrial areas, and then full premise hookups for homes. Next slide. Good news, we were approved for a planning grant for reseeding. So this will be an opportunity for the town to plan and scope the areas for reseeding due to erosion control and controlling the growth of noxious weeds throughout the town. So we know we had a record weed growth this spring, and we will continue to see a lot of weed growth, of course, as our ecology changes with the removal of those trees. So this planning grant will help us really understand what the right mix of foliage will be in town, and how we utilize that plan and scope will hopefully prepare us really for managing our fuels in town. So after we go forward with the plan and scope, we would hope to have a great plan in place to apply for funds for reseeding. Next slide.
What's the amount of that grant?
Oh, I don't have that on the top of my head, but I will send that to you. Yeah. So the grant will be for 75%, and then the town will match at 25% for hazard mitigation. Next slide. So 2021, looking ahead, this is really going to be bridging the gap. It's our unmet needs year. CDBG DR is coming in with funding for infrastructure that supports housing, single-family home grants, multifamily unit grants, and some economic development, really workforce development planning. So we're really working very closely with HCD on CDBG DR funds coming in, being very proactive in terms of preparing our projects for eligibility and review. And so we're hoping to bring you some excellent news in 2021 as we hopefully secure those DR funds for some of our major projects. And a lot of what we'll be focusing on with the DR funds is that unmet need in our capital improvement projects and disaster recovery project plan that we brought forward this year in our mid-year or in our budget presentation. So that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions.
Good question. Go ahead.
53,000 on the reseeding grant. Thank you, Mark.
I have a question back on the tree program. I've been getting a lot of questions from people concerned about lots around them with trees on them. So how can they find out if those lots are have signed up for either program? Is there a way?
Sure. There's a public-facing map at ButteCountyRecovers.org where they can check the status of that property. So they have to know the address, or they have to be able to find that parcel on the map, or call the tree advocates, and they're taking a look at that parcel map and helping folks understand what the status is of those properties, because oftentimes people who are concerned about imminent danger trees don't actually have those trees rooted on their property. Those trees are rooted on another adjacent property. And so when folks call us with concerns, we immediately look at their status. Have the trees been marked by the state, for example? Is the property unenrolled? So we kind of assess the situation.
ButteCountyRecovers.org, and
Yes.
then where do they go from there?
Let's see, it's quite a long URL. I would say I would direct them to makeitparadise.org, and they can click in through there, or honestly just call the tree advocates. You can do a Google search. This is what I do. I say Butte County tree removal map, and that takes me right to it.
Oh, perfect.
That's how I get there.
So I have a question along that line too.
Yes.
I'm getting some complaints already from people, and I talked to you earlier about one of them. So people that aren't enrolled in any program, a lot of people, you have to understand, absolutely will not sign the ROE. Too onerous, they're not going to give up their rights. And most of them didn't understand the inspection thing. They don't want any government people on their property. And so they didn't sign that either. So the people like Jody's mentioning that there are lots next door to me, right? My lot's clear, I'm good, but there are lots around me that aren't. I know one property owner that got the courtesy abatement letter, which is onerous. It's making people angry. Our citizens are getting mad about it when they've done all of their compliant. Maybe not with the program, but there's no trees on there. They took care of all that. So why don't we send these abatement threats to the property owners that aren't enrolled, aren't here, that have hazardous trees that are threatening other citizens that are here? Why don't we direct that effort towards those violations, towards those hazardous situations in our town, instead of angering the residents, few residents we still have here, unless they are totally non-compliant. I understand that we have citizens that are living here that are just saying no, but I mean, because there's a reality. That is an onerous ROE for some people.
So what?
Can
Yes.
I answer it real quick?
Sure.
I don't want to cut in, but I've had the same thing. And every one of them, when I got done talking to them, were okay. And I didn't take the approach of the government's trying to take over your property or trying to come on your property. It's more of, many of them, they might have taken care of their trees already, but the people can't, as they drive by, they can't see where the boundary lines are. And this last one just yesterday, I said, if you could just call and meet them there and walk with them on your property, they'll walk with you. I've done it. I know. They will do it. They'll walk with you and they'll just see he says, there's nothing on my property. He says, I said, I know, but they can't see the back line. If they get back there and see your back line, then they'll sign you off and they're done.
Yeah.
And they won't come on anymore. Every one of them, everyone has left the phone call happy and doing okay.
Okay, well, I'm talking about a very, very long-time, lifetime resident that I shared it with Katie, and I'll share it with you privately, but I'm talking about people that they're not getting a letter saying, look, this is all you ought to do. And maybe that's what we ought to do, either the mayor or the town or the tree people that represent our town, our government, ought to maybe approach those people, and send that letter. Then look we notice that, you're not enrolled in any program, and, but no, we're sending an abatement, a courtesy abatement letter that is angering good citizens.
Yeah, I know. I got it.
I thought that we did inspections and we took
Yes.
all the people who had not enrolled in anything but had taken care of their trees, we took them off the list.
We did.
I thought we did that.
Yes, we did. So we came up with the unenrolled
If they
list.
can tell, we did.
Yes, yes.
Do what?
If they can
If they
tell.
can tell that they
They're
have
off.
done
Okay.
that, they were taken off the list.
Okay. well,
I'm sorry,
I'll show you.
Katie.
No, that's okay. That's perfect. So all I wanted to say was we did courtesy roadside assessments for all properties in Paradise. So we completed those mid-year with our arborists. And what we did at that time was we took photographs of the properties if they were confirmed to have hazardous trees or if they were suspected to have hazardous trees. And so we, as Vice Mayor was saying, we did remove everybody who has completed the program, signed an ROE, or was marked ineligible during the courtesy roadside assessments from that list. And I do want to say what predated that letter going out were several emails, phone calls, ROE reaching out, tree advocates reaching out, a lot of social media. And so, and word of mouth, which is sort of the campaign that we've been utilizing as well, as neighbors are calling neighbors. So we really did our best to clean that list of anyone who doesn't have hazardous trees. If they were suspected to have hazardous trees, we sent the photographs that were taken during the courtesy roadside assessment with the letter. And honestly, if someone receives a letter, believes they don't have hazardous trees, give us a call. That scheduled inspection, going on site with the arborist, if they don't have hazardous trees, they'll be signed off in the moment, and no crew will ever come onto their property to remove anything.
Yeah, I hear what all of you are saying about what all you've done. That's wonderful. I'll share after the meeting privately the email chain from the tree people with this citizen that was born and raised here, and show you what he sent me. And he had he didn't get that kind of courtesy. So anyway, I'll share that with you after the meeting.
Great,
So,
yep.
a couple
Just know it's a
questions.
lot of it going on.
Yeah.
And they're not being told that, Greg. You told them that. When
No,
they
I
call-
told them, and that, I get it, but that's part of our job, is when people call, is to walk them through
Agreed.
the process.
But it's part of the town's job, the tree advocacy's
Well, they
the
got- I
program
understand.
to communicate that up front.
They got things they gotta do legally just to move forward, so.
I have a
Two
couple-
questions. Over on the old Mid-Valley title on Skyway, I've gotten several calls. One gal, she was crying. There was actually four big pistachio trees out front, and they got taken out. They said they were nothing wrong with them. One of them maybe had something wrong, but the other three were perfectly fine. So I don't know even what to say about it. I mean, I'm just telling you that people are very sensitive to these trees, and I know you can convey that to them, that even pistachio trees out on the Skyway that people have seen and love, and building left on the property, that hurts them. But the question I have for you is this: if a property is purchased after 12/31, how do you get enrolled in the program? So in other words, the property is bought January 6th. It immediately drops off the person that
Yeah.
had it. And so now it's in limbo until the new buyer puts it back on, but you're past that time.
So I know that the state is not going to extend the deadline, but I know the ROE Center is proactively reaching out because we do get ownership transfer lists from the county every day,
Right.
which have been really helpful. So I'll check in with Laura Page, who runs the ROE Center, to see what their plan is after December 31st. But there is that personal outreach happening between the ROE Center and the property owners. And really, our goal is to get as many people in the government program as possible, because abatement is very expensive. It's going to be very difficult for the town. We're looking at, who will the contractor be if we don't have the abatement process lined up before the government program is done. So I'll check in with Laura about that.
If you would, because
Yeah.
there's two different things. Someone might have signed up and then they sold their lot. So
Yeah.
they run in the program. It would probably be easy for them to get back in the program once they bought the property. But what if someone didn't, and it was in abatement, and they bought the property? Is the new owner now in an abatement situation that's going to cost them a bunch of money that they don't want to have? If we allow that to happen, we're going to have problems selling some of these properties.
Sure.
So
So,
I just want to be concerned.
yeah, no, I appreciate the question. I would say that in the abatement discussions, which the county is having with their council and we were having with our town attorneys, we haven't crossed that particular bridge yet.
Okay.
But we will absolutely get clarification on all of that. Really, everybody is invested in getting these properties cleared without abatement.
Right,
Yeah.
I know that, and
Yeah.
we're all on the same team to get
Yeah.
there, but I just see this little lap of problems possible.
And I have one question. Where are we at as far as the government program marking trees? Are we about done with that?
Yes. So as of the last report I looked at, I think they had about 25% of the properties still to mark. So they're actively marking the trees while the felling is occurring. And they are identifying the immediate hazard trees during the marking process as well, and those are becoming priorities.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I just have a couple quick questions. The assessment, that would be the marking of the trees, so you're thinking at 25% still left to do at this point?
Yes, but the numbers that they provided that I had on my slide are based upon what they're finding on the properties, so that those numbers really shouldn't change.
All right, got it.
Yeah.
And then two other questions, both on follow-through. So if if a person gets a pass, in other words, everything's fine on their property, are they getting some type of a feedback that says, hey, everything's good?
Yeah, they're getting a certification of clearance from the hazard tree removal ordinance. So that is going to those property owners that have removed their trees and have been certified, so this certification, or if they're marked ineligible.
You actually get a letter in the mail.
Yeah.
Because my property's gone through it, so I got one.
Okay. And so there is a feedback loop, and they get it. Do you know how many of those have gone out and how many of those have been completed at this point?
So we can go back to this slide. So we have, in the private program, we have 3,208 that have been completed. That's in the private program.
Okay.
Yep.
And then the other thing on the follow-through part of it, if people don't pass, then they are also getting a letter that says, you know, you have trees to take down.
Yes.
How do they know which of those trees are the ones that need to be taken down?
So if they're in the private program, it's their responsibility to have an arborist come on and assess their property and mark their trees for removal. So here's my recommendation is, if you are in the private program and you schedule an inspection, that would be completed by the town's arborist. So we hired the town's arborist to do the inspections and the certification, not tree marking. So my recommendation to property owners is, meet that arborist on your property, because they would need to be there for the arborist to have permission to enter their property because they haven't signed an ROE. Meet that arborist on your property, and then that arborist cannot, I just had this conversation earlier today, the arborist is not contracted to do the tree marking. But when you're on your property with the arborist and you identify a hazard tree, that information will be given to the property owner, who can then, make a plan as to what to do with that tree. But it's really the private property owner's responsibility, because they've elected the private program to do the assessment, the marking, the clearing, removing, and certifying.
Okay, so I think part of the problem that I'm hearing in the feedback loop is that not everybody is getting a phone call when the arborist is coming out. And then there's also this window, which could be like 4-hour window. So I think that is a bit problematic for people. And then all of a sudden they're getting a letter and it's like, okay, which trees? Some of us might be able to look at the tree and go, okay, yeah, that one needs to come down. Other people would not, and they may actually think that their tree is still viable.
Right, and that's where we're not relying on our opinions, we're relying on the opinions of certified arborists and foresters to make the assessment.
I know,
So,
but when the person, the
Yeah.
property owner gets
Sure.
the letter, they're
Sure.
probably looking at their tree and going, okay, it looks fine to me. I don't know which one of these trees that they had an issue with.
yeah, that's when they would hire an arborist.
And most of
Right.
the private cutters have arborists they're working with, they bring on with them and assess.
Mm-hmm.
You're cutting your own trees, you're on your own. You have to find
That's the
somebody.
people who
Right.
have their own trees are the ones that are
Right.
having
And that's the
some
problem.
frustration with that.
Yep,
So-
and they have elected the private program, which does mean it is their responsibility to take care of their property.
Okay.
And the town will come out and inspect and certify.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So we actually tell property owners, we don't want the town necessarily to get involved in the inspection until the hazardous trees are gone. Yeah.
Katie?
Yep.
One more thing. Early on, because I had an early permit, you're talking about people enrolled in the private program.
No, we
People
don't.
that enrolled in the government program, like, I had no trees left. So to get my occupancy permit, I had to sign up. It was mandatory. So it was either the ROE for tree removal, or it was another, not really an ROE, but a form for them to inspect. And you had the right on, and this is in the government program, which is what I chose. I said, okay, I'll sign that. But I said, I want to be present when you inspect. Nobody ever called me. Nobody ever met with me. I mean, there were no trees to inspect. And then I got the letter that Jody referenced saying my lot was clear, But how many of those letters have gone out too,
So I think that's why it was so critical for the town to do the courtesy roadside assessments, because we were able to remove properties from eligibility without them, if they didn't have any trees, without them having to go through all of the programs.
No, I'm saying, no, maybe you weren't around when it started. Early on, to get permits, to get anything from the town, I had to enroll in the program. I had no trees. So it made no sense to me to sign an ROE to remove trees that didn't exist. But George Morris, who was working at the time for the whatever the program was, said, well, then just sign the inspection form. You had a choice. And it was the government program, the inspection, but so that data is not in any of these reports. I got a letter, but I never had the inspection that I know of that I agreed to. I mean, there's another element to this program that's not the private choice, and I'm just curious about maybe seeing some numbers on that in the future.
Okay, yeah.
I'm in that same category. I signed the inspection form for the government program because I'd already taken all my trees out, and then I got a letter saying that my property was clear. So I think what Woody's saying is, are the people who got those letters in that 3,000 that you mentioned?
That the 3,000 I mentioned was for the private program.
This is a private.
Yeah.
Right, so
No.
there are people who signed that inspection form for the government
Mm-hmm,
program who didn't have any trees.
Right, because they were probably, so here's I believe they were probably assessed from the roadside, which means they didn't enter your property, so they didn't actually inspect, which is why you may never have gotten a call. And because it was assessed from the roadside, because we also removed, gosh, I think it was like 1,100 properties from eligibility right away, because they didn't have hazardous trees, they didn't have the presence of hazardous trees, so we were able to just say, you're clear.
I guess what I'm getting at, and I guess the point I'm making, is that we're being given statistics about people that enrolled in the government program and people that chose to be private. Well, this thing that Jody and I signed, this inspection form, actually had a box on it. Do you want to be present during the inspection?
that's-
Now, nobody told us that it would be a drive-by. You know, I mean, that makes sense. I'm
Yeah.
not disputing that. But I mean, it's not part of the data. It's not part of, it's part of the program, and it's not even mentioned. I mean, like the one I showed you earlier, there's somebody that they could do a drive-by. He didn't probably even know that was, because his house didn't burn. So he didn't know that he wasn't required to sign either one of them, And I don't know, it's some data that if we're going to have a report on all of this, it's part of the tree program, and it's just missing data.
Okay, that would be reflected in the ROE data, so I can check in with the county on that. They
big
track
deal.
that. But I definitely want to say that we've done everything that we can, both to be mindful of the safety of our residents and those rebuilding, but also of the resources that we have available. So the courtesy roadside assessments really came up because we had such low enrollment numbers in the ROE and private program, and we had so many properties that responded that we needed to take a look at everybody and say, we're just going to bucket these into two big categories, eligible and ineligible. And we were able to just clear the ineligible right away and save people a lot of hassle.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
quick,
Yeah.
just to kind of clear things a little bit. So on these roadside assessments that you did, drive-bys, as you call them, did people get letters after those? So
Yep.
they did, okay.
If they were not eligible because they had no trees, then they did receive a letter that said you're clear.
Okay.
Katie, I want to thank you. We will get through this.
We will. Mark my words,
There
we
is a
will.
light there somewhere. I don't know
Yeah,
where.
thanks for your patience and all of the teamwork that I really feel at the town for getting through this process. It's very complicated, but very gratifying, and it will happen.
Yes, it will.
Thank you, Katie.
Thanks, Katie.
So now Colette Curtis with business update.
Good evening, Mayor Crowder and Council. So I'm going to give a brief update on economic development and business. So as we talked about last time, Susan Hartman, the Community Development Director, and I have begun meeting with businesses who are interested in opening or reopening in Paradise. And that's going very well. Just in the last few weeks, we had several conversations with businesses, and I wanted to give you some kind of general information about those. We have a food service business who's looking to open on Clark Road. They're working through the permitting process, specifically on septic. They're very excited, and we're excited to help bring them to Paradise for the first time. So,
What does food service mean? Is that a restaurant?
yes.
Yay.
Yes, so I don't want to give too many details yet because we're early in the process, but I just wanted to let you know that that is in the works, and it's pretty exciting. So as that moves through the process, we'll let you know. I also spoke with a former Paradise business owner who actually was open in Paradise back in the 90s, had left Paradise and wants to come back. And so they are interested in restarting their business in another fashion. It's going to be kind of a retail business. They're looking at some kind of innovative things, and that's very exciting. So they're in the early stages of that, and we're working with them on some location ideas and getting that going. So that's going very well, and it really is helping these businesses start that process on the right foot. Also, with that process, we've been working closely with the Chamber of Commerce and making sure that they are fully aware of what we're doing and that we're aware of what they're doing, so we can work together as a team to help support our businesses as they come back to Paradise. So we've set up regular meetings with them to talk through these issues and make sure that we can recover together as a team. So we also are, as I mentioned last time, are starting up our listening sessions with our local businesses and industry. And we're going to be starting those in January, and through the next year, we're going to be meeting with these groups regularly to understand what's really going on in Paradise with businesses and how we can address some of the barriers that exist. We also are working on some many other initiatives with the Chamber of Commerce in 2021 that you'll start to see some updates on these items coming through. We're going to be working on information on commercial properties that are coming available, making that information readily available and easy to use for people who are looking to develop businesses and opportunities in Paradise. We're going to be starting some business surveys and doing business spotlights with the Chamber of Commerce. We hope to start an online business toolkit with our new website, and as well provide business walks, starting that up again once we are able to work with some of the COVID regulations to really meet with businesses in person where they are so we can get the information that we need from them. With all of this information, the idea is information gathering through businesses so we can understand exactly what's going on and we can provide an economic development strategy going forward. So that's what we're really working on for 2021, and I'm excited to keep you updated on that as we move forward. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I don't have any questions, but I can't overemphasize how important this is. It is huge, and you guys are doing a great job, and I'm hearing nothing but good from people that are meeting with you, so thank you. I know there's a gas station looking to come back in town, and they're excited. People need information, though, and that's going to be the one thing we need to get them is how many are here, how many have rebuilt, what's going on that way.
That's an excellent point. And thank you for that feedback. I absolutely agree. Information is what everyone wants, and that has been really difficult since the fire to provide. And so that's really what we're trying to get through all of these things I just talked about, but putting that information together in a way that is easy for businesses to access and is something that we can share easily as well for those who are looking for it.
Right.
Colette, I know we were working on a new website, friendlier, easier. Where are we standing on that?
Great question. I'm so glad you brought that up, Mr. Mayor. So yes, we are still working on the website. And right now it has been built out where we have migrated quite a bit of content over from our old website, but we really want to make sure we're not just repackaging our old information in a new website. We want it to be updated and really what people need, the information that people are looking for. So that's what we're working on now, is tweaking the information on the website to be what we know people are looking for and making it really easy to access. So we expect to go live with that in the beginning of the new year.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for Colette?
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Colette.
Thanks, Colette.
Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, so on to the consent calendar. One roll call vote is taken for all consent items are considered to be routine business and do not need to call for discussion.
I move for approval.
Second.
Motion by Bolin, seconded by Culleton. Roll call vote. Councilmember Bolin?
Aye.
Councilmember Culleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember Tryon?
Aye.
And Mayor Crowder.
Aye.
Thank you.
We have no. So, any public communication?
I do have one item that was emailed in from Ward Habriel, and it is, he says, I was in the audience several months ago when a member of the public made the following statements. I think what is wrong here is that the council is just doing what the staff tells them to do. Instead, you should be listening to what the people of Paradise want. And my comment is that what he said is more important now than ever. That's all.
Thank you, Dina. Public hearings. Staff
All right. Good evening, Mayor Crowder. Congratulations, and congratulations to Councilmember Culleton and Tryon. This item before you relates to a continued public hearing for the Underground Utilities District. I will rewind a couple of months. The town has been providing regular updates on this item, seeking to further our long-term recovery plan and reaching an objective, having all utilities underground on all roads throughout Paradise. With that said, we identified several tools, one being our broadband feasibility study, filing a CPUC complaint, forming an underground utility district on federal aid arterials and collectors, and those individually are all advancing forward. For this item specifically before you, regarding a public utility district for the federal aid arterials and collectors, we are providing the latest update on that is that we are recommending not advancing the district forward. PG&E has again completed about 50 miles throughout town, and we've yet to reach a formal agreement through Comcast and AT&T to also join the trench. As such, we were looking to form this district to use the mechanism of the Rule 28 district, requiring them to do so if we contributed some amount of Rule 28 credits that the town owns, or it can govern how it's used by forming this district. With this said, the other tools, the CPUC complaint is moving forward, and we do have a closed session later this evening to discuss this litigation, as well as the broadband feasibility study. And so with that, as indicated in our staff report, we view the federal aid arterials and collectors as a minimum as far as the floor of performance for all utilities to join the trench, and formation of the district will not help us get closer to all, not just these roads, but we want to get closer to all. Also, I'd like to say before opening to questions, if there's any other point in the future where we're working with CPUC staff or with the council and the community for an option to reconvene and reconsider the utility district, we are free to do so. With dropping this at this point for this tool, we do believe it'll encourage the progress and spirit of partnership and let the CPUC complaint process continue forward on its own and not have this be more so a barrier that requires constant extensions and discussion. With that, I'd be glad to answer any questions that you might have at this time.
So with what you just said, if we shelve this for now, that doesn't hurt us in the future to bring it back up?
Correct.
Okay. And does it extend timelines to bring it back up?
Yeah, so we would have to redo the public notice, which was not too laborious or costly, as we were forecasting. I think it ended up being $1,200 to get the mailing out and printed, and to the about 3,000 property owners that reside on a federal aid arterial collector. And notice in the paper, I think a 10-day minimum, and we could do this all over again. Our first public hearing, I think, was all the way back in September on this item. And so we've seen a lot of progress. There's some ways to go, and we'll be providing an update in closed session tonight and continue to work towards the objective for the long-term recovery of Paradise.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
We do need to open the public hearing.
7:12, open for public comment.
We did not receive any email comments or requests for phone calls, and we haven't had any phone calls as of yet either.
Cookie break.
Well, so at 7:12, we'll close the public comment.
I move approval of the staff recommendation.
Second.
Motion by Jones, seconded by Bolin. Roll call vote. Councilmember Bolin?
Aye.
Councilmember Culleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember Tryon?
Aye.
And Mayor Crowder.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6.
Another public hearing.
5B.
Oh,
No,
sorry.
5B. Yeah.
Sorry. 5B, conduct a duly noticed and scheduled public hearing related to the recommended general map zone for Paradise Unified School District property located at 634 Pearson. Upon conclusion of this public hearing, introduce and adopt the planning recommendations. Actions. 1, concur with the planning director's determination that the project application is categorically exempt from the CEQA requirements. Concur with the project recommended general plan use, map amendment, and rezone action adopted by the Planning Commission on November 17th, 2020, and embodied with Planning Commission Resolution Number 20-04, and adopt Town of Paradise Resolution Number 20-45, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Paradise amending the land use map of the 1994 Paradise General Plan, PUSD PL 20-00261, and waive the first reading of the Town Ordinance Number 601 and read by title only. And 5, introduce Town of Paradise Ordinance Number 601, an ordinance rezoning certain real property from community commercial to a community facilities zone pursuant to Paradise Municipal Code Section 17.45.500.
Thank you. Good evening, council. So, this project is for the Paradise Unified School District. It's one being brought up from Planning Commission. And it is in regards to the school district's operational facilities that are just east of Paradise Elementary on Pearson Road, on the other side of the bus drive. And so what we're looking at is that the school district's operational facilities actually are encompassed along 3 different properties there. And from the fire, they ended up losing 6 of the 8 existing facilities. And they've decided to rebuild as one structure that houses all of those services. So a consolidated rebuild kind of in the middle there, shown in green. But in order to do that, it would be building over existing property lines. So they're going through the process to merge those 3 parcels. The top right piece was picked up by the school district after the 1994 general plan, so it had a different zoning assigned to it, community commercial, because it was privately held. Whereas the rest of the school district's properties are all zoned community facilities. So what we're looking to do is to rezone that commercial piece to community facilities to be in alignment with the rest of the school district's properties. We'll merge the 3 on the east side of the bus drive, and then they'll have one piece that's the elementary school, one piece that's the operations facility, and then they're going to do a slight lot line adjustment between the 2 just to encompass more of that bus drive over into operations. And so what we're looking at tonight is to adopt the resolution to change the general plan designation to public institutional, and then just to introduce the ordinance for rezone. And then I did want to share some of these conceptual building designs for the facility they're looking to build. They've actually already submitted their building permits. And so once we get through this and in January, they'll be ready to move forward as soon as permits are ready to issue.
Is this going to be their offices?
No, they'll still have that facility there, but this will be like the actual bus shed, plus some other just administrative stuff that they had out there, a centralized kitchen facility, things like that.
It's a nice bus shed.
I know, right? So this is, if you're standing in that front parking lot in front of the kindergarten wing of the elementary school, looking towards it, this is what you'll see fronting on Pearson. Again, this is kind of on the bus drive, looking at the front and side. This is the back side. So this is how they've uniquely hidden those bus sheds, because there's such a change in elevation from the grading that they can incorporate it in the building, but you don't actually see this from Pearson.
Very nice.
And again, from the rear, looking towards that. So it's a great design. It totally makes sense. We just need to take care of the zoning inaccuracy just because of the timing of when the school district picked it up. And so what we're asking for town council tonight is to concur with the planning director's determination the project's exempt from environmental review, and that's because it's a reconstruction or rebuild. To adopt a town council resolution to amend the general plan land use designation, and then also to introduce the ordinance to rezone the property. And of course, if council has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So this went to the planning commission with no
It
problem?
did. So it comes with their recommendation for approval from
No
last
problems
month.
on their side?
No.
Okay.
It seems like there's still 2 different uses or codes, or would they then all be the same use
Then
codes?
everything outlined in red will all be zoned community facilities and all have a general plan designation of public institutional
Okay,
for all their properties.
but everything will be the same? Okay,
Yes.
Thank you.
Question?
No.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Open it up for,
So we need to
open it up for public comment,
Open the public hearing.
public comment,
public
It's a
hearing.
public hearing.
Reopening the public hearing.
open the public hearing at 7:19.
I did not receive any email comments, and we have not had any phone calls regarding this item.
Close the public hearing at 7:19.
I move acceptance.
Second.
Motion by Bolin, seconded by Culleton. Roll call vote. Councilmember Bolin?
Aye.
Councilmember Culleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember Tryon?
Aye.
And Mayor Crowder.
Aye.
Thank you.
That's an exciting project. That'll look nice.
So, item 6, council consideration. Action items are presented by staff, and the vote of each council member must be announced. A roll call vote is taken for each item on the action calendar. Citizens are allowed 3 minutes to comment on agenda items. Item 6A, consider appointing council representative and alternatives to represent the town of Paradise on various local and regional boards, committees, and commissions. Page 107.
The charts are on 142 and 143.
So most of the committees, the council can determine who they would like to represent. There is LAFCO, which is appointed by the city selection committee, and that is, Councilmember Bolin has been assigned to that committee, so that is his assignment. So that is basically, and then there are some that are the mayor and the vice mayor that are, that represent on those committees.
Can I just say, just to throw out there, that I know Councilwoman Schuster, former Councilwoman Schuster, that if you wanted her to, she would be more than happy. And we've had this before, a non-council member do the mosquito vector. Before she did it, there was someone that, at large, that did it.
Did it for years, yeah.
Did it for years, and she's actually taken to mosquitoes. So
No, she wants to do it. She'd like to stay there.
she would love to stay there. She said she's really found that to be something that works for her. So anyway, just throwing it out there if
Yeah.
no one's having a hankering to do that,
It's,
whatever hankering.
no, I think she wants to do it, and she's done a good job, and we should let her keep doing it.
Yeah, unless someone really is passionate. I agree.
Everybody good with that?
Yes.
So I want to be on the waste committee.
Could we maybe just go down the
order?
list in
You think?
order?
Yeah, that'd be the
Makes
easiest.
sense.
So if the first one's air quality, I would love to do air quality if that's possible.
I would love to give up air quality. I've had it, and it's been air quality and BCAG for, the same person's been doing it. I would like to keep BCAG because I have a lot of experience with transportation, but if you would like to do air quality, I think that's great.
Okay. So air quality goes along with Association of Governments?
They just meet at this, BCAG meets at 9, AQMD meets at 10, and they meet in the same place. So it just means one person from Paradise has to drive to Chico, but if you don't mind driving to Chico, I don't mind giving it up.
Do you want me to be your alternate for the second one?
For,
You want to stay on Beacon?
Alternate for,
if you want air quality, you can have air quality. I'd like to keep BCAG, and then we need an alternate for both of those,
Okay, I can be your alternate for BK then.
unless
I'm
someone else
already gonna
wants
be
to.
there.
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. I could be your alternate, and we wouldn't have another person driving down there,
There you go.
if that works.
Yeah, that would save our air quality.
Okay. And their next meeting is supposed to be Thursday, but air qualities was canceled due to lack of agenda items. So they're
Okay.
not meeting Thursday.
Okay, but is the Association of Governments,
Yes,
they are.
but I'm going, so you don't need to go.
It'd be nice just to go to get an idea of
And
what
see
the-
what it's like.
Yeah,
So they do it on Zoom, or you can attend in person, and they're not using the boardroom now because they're not letting any public people in. So we meet in a conference room at the BCAG building. It's at 9 o'clock. I can send you tomorrow the agenda.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
City election.
That's you.
Yes.
Quick question, on LAFCO, does it have an alternative, alternate? No, okay.
I want that.
Those are one or two people that are on that?
Hmm?
Is there one or two?
There's one with an
There's one
alternate.
with an alternate.
I don't think they meet that often.
No.
You've been the alternate, Steve. Do you want to stay that?
I can do it if you don't want to.
Water advisory.
I'd really
Yeah.
like to do that one.
Or you skipped city county ad hoc.
That's after water
Oh,
advisory.
oh, I see. This is on here. What is water advisory?
Boring.
Oh, we took it off last time.
Yeah.
So I was the representative and I went for several years. And it's all about the valley and the groundwater. It has nothing to do with Paradise. Nothing. So I recommended last year that we take it off our list and not send anybody because.
I think
we
Rose
really-
would like to do it, though.
But if you
Thank
want to
you.
do it, I didn't see where we had
Yeah,
anything to
but there
contribute.
was, when Sam Dresser used to do it as a citizen at large, and that's when they were doing the whole relicensing of the dam, and so there were some advantages to being involved in that, because there was possibility of additional revenues if, there was some reason, it all had to do with a lot of that stuff way back when. But I
Yeah.
know what you're saying.
I think Rose is in.
Really,
That is
you can do it.
Yeah, that'd be perfect, thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, with your ag background, you probably could bring a lot more to the table than I could.
Okay, thank you.
And sell them PID.
So, city, county, that last time.
Did you ever meet?
Nope.
Want to do it again?
And,
I'll do it.
I,
I don't care, unless you want it.
go ahead.
Especially if they never meet.
So we're on to.
T-bid.
T-bid.
So I have a suggestion for T-bid.
What is
Melissa has been our representative, and she was very tied in with the chamber and had a high degree of interest on tourism and a lot to bring to the table that I don't know that any of the rest of us have.
She'll be on that whether we appointed her.
She's going to
That's
be
right.
on it
Yeah, she's
as a representative from the chamber
Chamber,
because she's on the chamber board.
Right.
But with Colette's new role in the town, this position doesn't have to be a council person. And it seems to me that with you as the business liaison, that you might be a really good fit
Do I see your
instead of
hand
a
up?
council person. They meet every other month. So I don't think
Something you're
it's,
interested in?
I don't think it's a huge time commitment because they don't even meet monthly.
I would be happy to do that. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for the opportunity.
And I think it's really good, that we have a town representative there. I mean, be it a council member or a staff member from the town. It's just really good that we have that interest represented, as well as the chamber and all the other county. And
Thank you for accepting
Thanks,
Colette.
Thanks for volunteering,
Appreciate it.
Colette.
Get you out of the office.
Continuum of care.
Colette? Oh. Just kidding.
That's the homeless people. I'll do it. I mean, it's a group that works with that kind of issues, and I have some experience.
I'm glad you want to do it, Woody. The prior person, I don't think he ever went to the meetings.
Oh, I'll go.
So I think we should have a representative there who cares about it.
Well, we need to know because it's everywhere. It's part of our community, every community.
Okay, on to local committees. Paradise Community Village. I was alternate last year.
Did they meet?
They did not.
You know,
And I'm
I don't even know what that is. I mean,
Uh,
Chip bought the,
They did.
did we? Okay.
You didn't get invited.
Well, I was the alternate.
Oh,
anyway.
that's right, that's right. What's it concerning? Is it building?
Concerning the rebuild process.
it's just that property behind the bowling alley.
Yeah, I know what it is.
And unless,
You'd be a good one for that, Greg.
I wasn't asking for that reason, but I'll do it, that's fine.
Good.
An
I'll
alternate?
be your alternate, Greg.
Can I get another alternate? I'm just
No,
kidding.
you
I'm just
cannot.
kidding.
You know, it's the Christmas season.
I know.
You know, this is my first night at the dais, and
I know.
it's like you're treating me
I wanna
like we've
get you-
never worked together
I
before.
want you to get you
That's
in the-
okay, I'll forgive you,
the
because I
mode.
have a big heart.
so then we come to Paradise Irrigation District Liaison and I would like to.
I'm interested in doing that also.
I'd like to keep it.
Ooh, let's have a tug of war.
Arm wrestle. I see.
Yeah! Let the games begin. Well, I want to vote for Rose because I think new people should jump right in and get involved, and she has some experience, so I'm just going to say that right off. you know. Oh, is that code?
Well,
So I've been on the committee for a couple years now, and I'd really like to stay on it.
What do they do?
It's the liaison, 2 members of their board and 2 members of our board, and we meet and share information, basically.
What about Rose and Cody?
okay.
You got enough to do with,
Yeah, you gotta be
Select
smart, you
committee.
got other stuff.
trust me, you'll be all right.
And as the mayor, you get to pick a different alternate.
So Paradise Rec and Park District.
I don't think that ever met, did it?
I don't think so.
But
Do you
they're
know?
really vibrant. I'll be on that somehow.
I think it's important.
Yeah, I think we should be team players, because they're really vibrant. They're doing a lot of they have some new vision and new things going on. I'll be glad to go meet with them.
We need 2, though.
Okay,
I would,
You?
I will do it also.
good.
Paradise Solid Waste.
I'm interested in that one.
Me too.
Okay.
I'm
so-
good, I'm good.
You good with that, Greg?
I'm good.
Huh? We friends again?
You're in,
Cool.
you're in.
So do we need 2 or just 1?
2.
We need 2.
Okay.
I'm hearing you.
Sorry.
Thank you.
You're talking to me.
On-site Ad Hoc Committee.
I don't think they met this last year either.
No.
What did that, what's the purpose of that?
And how is it different from solid waste?
Well, it's different. On-site sewer septic.
Yeah, but what goes in there except solid waste?
No,
I'll
solid
take-
waste is your garbage.
I'll
and
take one for the
recycle.
team, I'll do it.
I won't even go there, Greg.
Do we need 1 or 2?
2.
I'll,
Up to you.
That's appropriate.
for who?
I just saying it. I was,
So who are the 2 for on-site ad hoc committee then? I have
I'll do it,
Councilmember
who else
Bolin.
wants to do it?
I'll do it also.
Okay, so Councilmember Bolin and Crowder.
So Finance Committee is
Jones
mayor and
Crowder.
vice mayor.
You and Jody?
So the oversight committee has to do with the ROPS.
It's the successor agency to the oversight board.
Oh.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
I've done that forever.
So this committee, this Butte County Oversight Board, meets once a year in January, and they approve all the ROPS from all the jurisdictions in Butte County. The Department of Finance used to do it, and they gave it back to the counties, and they created this board that does it here now. So I've been doing it for a couple years. They meet once. If no one.
Can you
if-
still do it?
What do you
No, I
mean?
mean, good.
I mean, I can still do it, or if someone else would like it, it's really boring.
Yeah, it really is.
It has a.
I'm good
well,
with Jody doing that.
I thought you were going to say,
Oh, no, 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 no.
I'd like a
I'm good with
boring
Jody doing
assignment.
Yeah, but it's only once a year, so I'll keep doing it.
Atta girl.
Thank you.
I do have one other one to bring up. I had a conversation with Kelly Jane at Fire Safe Council, and they expressed an interest with having involvement from one of the from a council member on that committee. I would really be interested in doing that if that's at all possible.
Can we add committees?
Yeah, we're the council.
If you,
I think that's a great idea.
I like it.
Yeah.
You're in.
Okay, I'll take it.
I will add that to the list.
I will call and make sure that there's a proper invitation before I just show up.
Okay, well, that's 6A. Yeah. 6B is consider adopting resolution number 2046, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Paradise approving the 2021 Federal Advocacy Platform.
Have one?
And thank you all very much for letting the new kid play.
You're welcome.
Thanks for wanting to.
Yeah, thank you. It's all about sharing the work.
So good evening, Council. I'm pleased to present our draft federal advocacy platform for your consideration. On the phone, we have Christy Moore with the Ferguson Group, who has been working with us to develop this platform. Next slide.
Actually, the keyboard's right under.
Oh, this, I'm just advancing here. Great. So what is a federal advocacy platform? It is a document, it's a living document, but it essentially celebrates and sort of codifies the successes that we've had in advocating for our recovery, which we'll go over a few. But it also outlines the ways in which the partnership can be strengthened for the benefit of the town and other communities facing disaster and recovery. We've already, in sort of mentioning that we're developing this draft federal advocacy platform, have been called by other agencies or other corporations who would like, once this is approved, to sort of see what we're focusing on so that there is a potential for leveraging our voices for maximum impact. The Ferguson Group has been working with the town for many years, but they really formalized their agreement with us after the Camp Fire. It is a pro bono agreement with the town to provide advocacy and other services related to recovery and rebuilding. And they have, since we signed the agreement, registered with the House and Senate as representing the town and have been filing all appropriate quarterly lobbying disclosure reports since on our behalf. Next slide. Oh, that's me, sorry. I would like full service, please, full service. Okay.
Self-service.
Okay, working on that. Okay. Thank you. I will say it again. I will guarantee you. Okay.
Let me have the board out there.
Need assistance. Okay. So our advocacy successes so far are really significant. So we were able to gain that rural community designation after the fire, which did allow us to apply for immediate assistance under the USDA rural development programs. we were able to increase the cost share from FEMA for category A and B damages from 75% to 90%.
Next slide.
Yes, I almost, see, I was on it. Okay, next slide. A few more, removal of standing burned trees. So this was the inclusion of those eligible private roads. And the USDA grant for the Building Resiliency Center to the total of $148,300, which allowed us in part to open the Building Resiliency Center. So Christy is on the phone, as I mentioned, and she is going to walk us through the immediate needs in infrastructure and housing and really the reason a lot of these projects were chosen. We're going to keep it high level. It's a very complicated, I shouldn't say complicated, but detailed platform. And I do want to mention as you go through these items, we are working with just in the platform, identifying what those projects are and that high level outline. And as we really start focusing in and honing in on the projects, there will be the opportunity to develop some specificity around what our ask might be and our strategy. But Christy, do you want to take it from here?
Sure. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm on the phone.
Oh, yeah.
We can hear you. Hi, Christy.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Hello. This is I think you were my first presentation in a mask, and now you're my first presentation in a public meeting on the phone and not being able to see you either. So bear with me as I kind of fumble through this a little bit and do the slides. But as Katie said, what we're doing here is pulling out some high-level elements of the platform. The platform itself is meant to be somewhat general on purpose, and that allows us to keep up with the ebbs and flows and the opportunities, the different pieces of legislation, grant programming, so on and so forth, to fit your needs without making it so structured in the platform itself that it prevents the town from acting on any of those elements. And so what we did is tried to tell a little bit of the story of the town and in a post-campfire world. And so this group of immediate needs is really focused on infrastructure and housing, which are the larger elements of your rebuilding effort. These are also hot topics within Washington, and so identifying them as your base needs for infrastructure in particular is going to resonate very well with members of Congress and the different committees. And so what we'll do here is underneath of these individual categories is determine specific needs and projects that meet these goals, and then we'll look for ways to address those either through grant program, appropriations, and or legislation and regulatory issues. Next slide. There's a delay here, so for me,
yep, you're on the long-term
the video
needs.
needs to catch up. So yeah, so I'm just going to march on forward. The next group is really looking at your long-term needs. That doesn't mean that this is any sort of a secondary list of needs or anything. It's just really looking at a larger, more comprehensive approach to your rebuilding efforts. And so each of these different categories, again, will augment with specific needs and asks and pinpoint grant programming and different ways to approach each of these elements as they were identified in the platform. One of these two pieces, both the immediate needs and the long-term needs, really fall into a lot of funding. And so really looking at ways to bring those federal dollars, bring that federal investment down to the town and help support you in the rebuilding effort as well as just your normal everyday needs. And so a lot of that priority will be pinpointing and looking at grants programs and identifying which ones make the most sense, looking at other funding opportunities through annual appropriations and through funding, but federal funding that is often outside of a traditional grant program or financing along those lines. But one of the things we're also really key in looking at and tracking is earmarking. Earmarking was a process that was where Congress used to direct dollars down to individual projects for their constituents and for their districts. And so that is something that could come back. I'm not guaranteeing it's going to come back, but it is very much on the table, and we could have a resolution on whether that will resurface in 2021 in the near future, maybe even the next couple of weeks. And so if that happens, we'll kind of respond in that way and have all those projects primed and ready to go. And I think all your members of Congress are going to support in those efforts. Next slide.
Okay, I switched.
Okay, this is the policy recommendations. This is really where we want to teach and educate the federal agencies in particular, as well as the congressional committees and members themselves on what we learned and what the rest of the country has learned through the Camp Fire disaster itself, as well as ways to rebuild it, and really present some ideas on ways to tweak federal policy, tweak federal regulation and legislation to be able to bring more direct response and more expansive response down to communities like the town who have to deal with major disasters at the degree that you guys did. One thing that I want to point out here is this disaster zone designation. This is an idea that we have floated around on the Hill a little bit. I actually spoke to congressional staff again about it this week, kind of priming the forces for tackling that in 2021, and that's to take advantage of an idea and a concept through opportunity zones and apply that to disaster-stricken communities like the town. So, again, this is something that I think we can promote as a way to better the world and better the way the federal agencies respond to the town. Hopefully you can take away from it and benefit from it, but it's a way to kind of bring in those lessons learned and look at those future policy recommendations to hopefully work on those. This is very much longer term, but this is the fun stuff in my opinion. Next slide.
Okay.
So what's next? How do we fit this all together? When we first started working with the town on the concept of a federal platform and a federal agenda, one of the things it does, as Katie said, one of the things it does do is it allows you to respond. It allows others to understand what you need, which is the most important component. And so that will be part of the next step very early on in 2021 is starting to float this advocacy platform around, educate staff on it, educate the committees, and educate the administration on your needs. And then we'll work with them to develop the specific ideas and strategies for the different elements that catch on and really start to see some movement. When we started to work this, it was pre-COVID. And our world has obviously changed. Hence the reason I'm on the phone and not there in person. And so what we'll do is we had actually strategized to have a series of, I think we were planning at least 3 trips to Washington, D.C., or at least 3 comprehensive approaches to your delegation, looking at doing that in California as well so that you didn't always have to go to D.C. But we're going to put that into action just virtually. We have found great success in setting up virtual Hill Days and starting to have those in-person, quote-unquote, conversations with members of Congress, members of your personal delegation, but also the committees that really oversee all of the jurisdictional areas that we're looking at approaching. We have found that those virtual meetings have been very, very effective. And we're now scheduling them on the hour mark instead of the 30-minute mark, which is traditionally the amount of time that you get with a member of Congress. Not to say that they aren't busy. There's just a little bit more time in particular to meet with staff and really educate them. So we're excited to put this all together, start planning those D.C. trips, quote-unquote, virtually, and really getting to work on bringing some more successes down to the town and marching you around the Hill.
Well, thanks, Christy. And what I also like about the opportunity to advocate virtually is we can have any number of folks involved. So it won't involve a plane ticket and a hotel. We can have folks plugging into meetings that they feel compelled to participate in. So we can have that variety of participation too that I think will be really beneficial, not only for your own interests as council members, but also to get to the point with our elected officials very specifically. So
definitely. I think one of our first interactions with the town on this effort was when Vice Mayor, then Mayor Jones was accompanied Butte County in their traditional annual advocacy meetings in D.C. I think it was the spring after the fire, and we marched all around town. And so there was a lot of calling into staff, a lot of checking in, so on and so forth with details. And so as Katie said, we're able to put you guys all on the phone in that regard and also really make it fit to our needs. So if you need to meet with a member on a Wednesday on a hot issue, it doesn't matter. You don't have to fly to D.C. to do that. We can just put you in touch with them virtually. And like I said, they've been very effective so far.
So just in conclusion, this is a draft federal advocacy platform. So we're, of course, open to craft this however you see fit. So taking comments on all of that. Or if it is something that meets your approval at this time, we would be looking for that formal approval. And the approval of the council is really essential because we'd like to go forward as we engage with our elected officials with something that has been approved. I don't know, Chris, if you want to mention anything about the significance of that approval, but it is really necessary to be very compelling, obviously.
Yeah, most communities who go through the establishment of a platform do approve it in a public setting like this, and really kind of put the towns and the council's stamp of approval on it. It allows us to really float it as a document that has been approved by elected officials, and that really carries a lot of clout when we're meeting with the different members, in particular those that are outside of your personal congressional delegation.
Thank you.
I have a question. Can you go back to that first slide with the 4 different groups on it? Yeah, right there.
Oh, there.
That one. So one of the things that we are currently, as we speak, living through is, I think it's up there, it's under that, no, maybe it's not on that slide. Anyway, you're talking about the disaster, what's the one with the?
Disaster zone.
Disaster zone, yeah.
Disaster zone?
Yeah, not disaster zones. The next one, the create centralized federal funding application. Here's our experience currently that I would really advocate for. I think that's even more important than maybe it goes hand in hand with the disaster zone. The protocols that government funding follow, like the tree program we're involved in now. A year ago, the bids were put out, or the thing. Somebody was awarded the contract. Somebody complained. So we went through a year of 3 different complaints. That should be, if you're dealing with disaster recovery, the processes or the protocols that the funding mechanisms go through should be altered from what the normal governmental processes are. Is that making sense? Like you don't have to advertise it for 45 days. You don't have to jump through all those same hoops. If it's a disaster and that's what you're dealing with, you put out the price, you get somebody to sign up, and you give them the money and you go. Because here we are, we have people, their lives are being threatened by dead trees that should have been taken down more than a year ago.
So just to clarify, if I can, this specifically is addressed to the administration of the information between the town and the many government agencies that do provide support. So we have a grants portal for FEMA PA, for example, one for hazard mitigation. We have another for Cal OES, and then we have another for USDA. And so we have many different platforms that we utilize. So this is the sort of a request to consolidate a lot of that.
Okay. Yeah.
Can I add to
Yeah.
it?
You know what?
Yes, I know what you're talking about. I think what Woody is suggesting
Procurement.
is that you add a 4th one to this codifying lessons that talks about just the process to hire the people to fix the disaster.
So the urgency.
Yeah, like the
making
debris
sure-
removal
yeah.
or the tree removal,
Yeah.
the process we had to go through to finally start felling trees. It took a year and a half. And we're lucky no one's been killed. That you shouldn't have to follow all the same processes. That bid protest cost us money. And why, when you have something that's such a health and safety thing?
Sure.
So I think we could talk to them about modifying their processes for disasters when health and safety is at risk.
But again, they're the funding source, and Cal OES is the arm in which implements it. So it's them working with whatever agency to make that happen too. So it's important. I agree. We're very lucky someone hasn't died. Someone should have this last storm.
And I think that the other part of that is making sure you're working with the right agency, because I contend that if we were working with the Department of Forestry, that whole thing would have probably gone much smoother, but instead we're working with FEMA, who this is a new project for them. I do have a couple quick questions. In your methods, are you meeting with congressional members as well as regulatory agencies? Or what is your focus there?
Yes, so it would be meeting with everybody, so members of Congress, members of committees, committee staff, as well as the federal agencies and regulatory agencies. So it'd be all the way up to departments and down to the individual agencies.
Because sometimes it feels like when I've gone back there with other groups, that actually talking to the agency, sometimes you get more traction there and you get more things happening than you do actually talking to the Congress.
Yeah, it's important to, when we set up these fly-ins or when we set up a series of meetings, I think we did about 2.5 days when we met after the campfire when Vice Mayor Jones accompanied us, and it's a mix, so it's not just your personal delegation. They know what your needs are, but it's working with, on the Hill, those committees that have jurisdiction over the bills or the legislation we're looking at. But on the funding side and really the administrative side, it is working with those individual agencies and not just the ones you're dealing with, like FEMA or Forest Service or anything along those lines, but also the ones that have jurisdiction over the programs that create the funding. So I think we met with CDBG-DR, for example, so on and so forth. So it is important to hit all of them. And you're right, a very balanced approach is to target all of the different avenues of government. So
Okay, thank you.
we kind of cover all the bases.
So going back to the point that was made before about the urgency, something that might help that bullet point, because I think it really is all about creating efficiencies so we can get to the work faster, and also to remove some of the duplication of effort on behalf of the town in terms of securing funding for projects.
I think what's going to happen with the Congress and with the lawmakers is because I understand about the funding sources, but when government funds are allocated, like if we put out a bid for a road project as a town of Paradise, any government agency, there are certain protocols that you must follow. You have to advertise it for 45 days, blah, blah, blah. I'm talking about changing that protocol. Never mind where the funds come in. If it's government dollars from any source, they're going to have to follow these protocols. And I think there should be disaster protocols so that those funds can be expended quicker.
Faster.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's, I think it is an element, and I can, if you guys want to add it, I think it does fall into that lessons learned, future policy recommendations. It's kind of covered. All these different things you're talking about are kind of covered in the other areas and the other items on the agenda, but I think pulling it out would be would enhance that section. I actually had a very lengthy conversation with a Senate staffer this morning from Senator Feinstein's office around these same kind of concepts and ideas, looking at ways to improve the efficiencies of that federal response, both from an emergency perspective, FEMA, as well as a mitigation perspective with the other agencies. And so I think it is something that they do want to hear your reaction and your story and what worked and what didn't work, so that they can try to put those into place for future disasters. So I think if it is something that the council wants to add, I think it's very appropriate to add into this section, and we could work with staff to kind of create some language to run by you at that point. Katie, I don't know what you think about that, but I think it is something we could add in.
Yeah.
It will be a conversation. Stafford Act, which is the authority for FEMA and disaster relief and response, is up for reauthorization. At the beginning of this year, prior to COVID, we fully expected Congress to take action on it, but COVID happened. And there's a lot of lessons learned from COVID as well that I think that Congress is going to be looking at in sort of their response to the Stafford Act as well.
Yep.
For example, the centralized federal funding application idea was actually implemented in COVID.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good idea, Christy. I'm in favor of that.
Okay.
So do we just have to move approval or something?
Yes, with that addition.
Yeah, with that, I mean, it sounds like you guys are going to work on that.
Are there public comments, though?
I have not received any comments via email or on the phone.
Then we go, play any more questions?
If no more questions, I'll move approval.
I'll second with the addition.
Okay.
Motion by Culleton, seconded by Jones to approve resolution number 20-46 with additions. Councilmember Boland,
Aye.
Councilmember Culleton,
Aye.
Councilmember Jones,
Aye.
Councilmember Tryon,
Aye.
and Mayor Crowder.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you
Thank you
for
very
what you
much.
do. We wouldn't be able to do it without you, so thank you.
Thanks, Christy.
Thank you. All right, good evening.
Good evening.
Have a good night.
Is there anyone else on the phone, Dina?
Yeah,
Yes.
there
I've
are
got two
people.
or three people on the phone.
I won't hang up then.
Please
thank
don't.
you.
Thank
Who's on the phone now?
you. A couple of people, HDR Engineering, and then the Regional Board, Water Board.
Can you speak?
Yes.
Thank you.
Do that.
What number?
So we're 6C.
You don't have to read that. I will read it for you later.
I need to recuse myself on this one.
You are?
I'm out of here.
All right.
He's
Have
got a
fun.
conflict. Can't vote on the sewer.
What is this one? Oh, this is sewer.
Sorry. All right, good evening, Mayor Crowder and Council. Again, my name is Mark Maddox, Public Works Director for the Town of Paradise. And it's my pleasure to report on the Paradise Sewer Project and our current status and what we're asking you to do tonight and outline a path forward for the project. So we've been giving regular updates for the past couple of months, so I'm going to repeat myself a little bit here to try and establish some sort of consistency and operating on the same picture for the project. And so with that, a few key definitions to start. The Paradise Sewer Project is our overall effort to provide a long-term solution for the collection, treatment, and dispersal of wastewater from parcels identified in the sanitary or the sewer service area. The sewer service area, with some exceptions, are properties encompassed by Clark Road, Skyway, Pearson Road, and they're mapped here on this exhibit. So as far as the history, we go way back for the sewer in Paradise. In fact, our first study related to sewer in Paradise was back in 1969 with the Butte County General Plan Water and Sewer Element. Since then, we've had countless numbers of different variations of studying the same thing, that Paradise needs a sewer. One of my favorite engineers from Chico 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, I'm sorry, prior to the 2016 study starting, said he was very concerned about Paradise getting another edition for the library. And I said, no, this is it. And here we are with the latest edition, but this is it. I really do think we're here, and I'm so excited to present the remaining information tonight and hear forward. So with that, why did Paradise need a sewer pre-fire? For many properties, perpetual on-site treatment and dispersal was not sustainable. We have high groundwater, limited land available, and poor soils. It's a terrible combination. So with that, we have to restrict ourselves based on what we can allow for each individual parcel. So that means restaurants can have less seats. We can't have dense multifamily housing. And in spite of the campfire, that's very challenging in our recovery efforts. Here's a quick map that we developed back in 2017, which represents what we know to be the high groundwater levels in Paradise, showing kind of our centralized business district and the small parcel sizes that make replacement leach lines a very difficult objective to achieve on many commercial properties in the downtown, and even multifamily and single-family homes. So why do we need a sewer now? We expect the presence or absence of a sewer project to shape our prospects for a full recovery from the campfire. In the midst of a regional housing crisis, affordable multifamily housing in Paradise is nearly non-existent. And again, what comes first, commerce or people? Without a sewer, possibly neither. And we actually have some data to back this up. Presenting Rebuild Paradise's map that they have on their website, the Rebuild Paradise Foundation. They have an incredible tool which leverages community sharing information for property surveys to lower costs. As you know, filing your survey is one of the first steps as we go forward to rebuild. Parcels in purple on their map on their website have completed their property corner survey or certification, and again, typically their first step. But when we hone in on the downtown and just isolating the actual downtown encompassed by Pearson, Skyway, Black Olive, and Elliott, the actual sewer service area is much larger, as I already showed. But we can see that only a handful of property owners have completed their survey, and we did have quite a lot of destruction in the downtown as well. They were not immune. In fact, when we look at the percent who have completed their survey in the sewer service area versus outside of the sewer service area, we're about half. We're lagging about 50% behind outside of the sewer service area. So that can be a correlation of people waiting for the sewer, different demographics or socioeconomic issues, but we know at the end of the day, they're behind outside the sewer service. To thrive and rebuild, we need to provide these essential services, commerce, restaurants, and the like. So enter HDR Engineering. Back in January of this year, Town Council awarded a contract to HDR Engineering to undertake the environmental review study for the Paradise Sewer Project. They divided their work into phase 1, being the pre-environmental impact report, engineering and a regionalization study, and phase 2 being the environmental impact report and engineering as well. I put this map. HDR Engineering is a global firm operating over 13 countries throughout the world, and they're an excellent team, and we're so grateful to have them come give a fresh perspective and a fresh look at this project. And they are on the call tonight as well for some closing comments. So now I'll go ahead and establish the project and what we're looking to do and what our options are moving forward. So our project, certainly we don't have to do anything. We could say we're fine, status quo will continue to operate without a sewer and have the issues that we're currently experiencing. Or we could look at a local treatment plant, which can either be a surface water discharge, which means after the water is collected and treated at the plant, the water is discharged to a water body. The effluent is discharged to a water body, such as the Sacramento River, creeks and streams, lakes, and so what have you. Otherwise, there would be a land application, which would be the most probable, being that we don't have any water bodies immediately available to Paradise for a local treatment plant, meaning that we would irrigate crops or store the water and allow the land to absorb the treated effluent on a given parcel size. And then lastly, beneficial reuse would be taking that treated effluent, pumping it back, we have a collection system to bring it to the plant. Beneficial reuse means double the cost, a distribution system to irrigate it somewhere. Typically, communities in Southern California, golf courses, parks, large bodies of land that need water. So that's one option there. And then our fifth and final option is the regional option with the city of Chico, the connection to their water pollution control plant there east of Chico. So the components of what makes up each one of those alternatives I just lined out for you is we have collection, treatment, and dispersal. Collection, and I'm going to start highlighting HDR's findings along the way, and again, you've heard some of this information from last month, but for the sewer service area flows, we'd have a startup of less than 100,000 gallons per day and a build out about 500,000 gallons per day. Again, we have about 300 standing structures today in the sewer service area. The collection system type, new in this would be we're proposing a gray system in lieu of a step. A step required that tanks remain on parcels, but they would have to be pumped less frequent than existing today. So that's great, but they still would have a tank and a pump to pump the effluent to a pressurized water line or sewer line. I'm sorry. So with this, while they have no tanks, no leach lines, no pumps for homeowners, that's great, but this also means we do have increased number of pump stations for the town and deeper excavations for the trenching. But gravity, again, gives that homeowner the flush and forget setup that we heard that many desired. The collection system costs equal among all alternatives is about $117 million for the sewer service area. So now as far how to handle treatment and dispersal, this is where the decision comes on what do we do next. So we've outlined the 5 alternatives, and we immediately off the top like to screen out alternative 2 and 3 because we don't have that body of water to discharge the effluent, and we do not want to double the cost for an unknown water use for beneficial reuse. So that leaves us with these 3 options, alternative 1, 4, and 5, the land application, the Miocene Canal option, as well as a direct connection to the City of Chico water pollution control plant. And so with all of this, we still have to deal with Paradise's topology. And this is a map, again, you've seen before, but the areas highlighted in red represents grades that are steeper than 20%. We really need an area that is larger, flat, and has good soils, and so we don't have that in town. So any land application project, we're looking at something out of town in potential ag areas of Butte County, and between Town of Paradise and the Highway 99 corridor. So I'll walk through each of the individual options and the findings from HDR. The viable treatment plant locations for alternative 1, represented as the green dots on this map. We identified 2 on the Clark Road corridor, 2 along the Neal Road corridor, and we need about 7 acres total for the treatment plant. But that's not where the land need. Blue hatched area on this map, 150 acres for the effluent storage and 310 for land application. Again, we can't apply the land, or I'm sorry, we can't have the treated effluent on land during rainy season as the soils are already saturated, so we need to have additional storage areas back up. Alternative 4 was something very new we considered in this study. Viable treatment plant location we identified was the Kunkel Reservoir, and we thought there was this opportunity for synergy between the loss of water being delivered through the campfire destruction for the Miocene Canal, potential downstream ag users. However, in our study, we did identify issues with Cal Water drinking water connection, and what that equals to is a much, much higher treatment standard equaling cost. So lastly, the regional connection with the city of Chico. This map here has a couple of different alternatives for pipeline alignments, something that if this alternative was vetted further in the EIR process that we would consider. We're not looking at deciding on any alignments tonight. City of Chico has an existing treatment plant with a permitted discharge to the Sacramento River. This requires a connection fee to be paid to the city of Chico, where we are buying our to treat our wastewater generated by our town. This project is the only one that would require an MOU with an independent agency such as the City of Chico. This MOU would outline growth, operations and maintenance, treatment, dispersal facilities, upgrades, all the if-then statements would be worked out in that MOU document that we'd be working towards. So now I'd like to move forward to the HDR analysis, and this information again is included in the agenda packet and how they evaluated how these projects should be compared against each other amongst these 5 different categories: economic, social, environmental, implementation, and operational. So moving forward, cost and economics is obviously critical. We evaluated the project in terms of the net present value and capital, and I established uniform tables for each of these categories. And we assigned a score in relation to how much they cost compared to each other. For this project, or for this analysis, the regional option is the most affordable long-term, especially considering the net present value analysis and the long-term O&M of the project. Social, construction impacts, permanent impacts, ongoing monitoring and mitigation requirements, the regional option scored higher as well. When it comes to environmental, long-term construction operational impacts to specific sensitive environmental resources, permitting, permanent loss of ag land, all of these things were considered, and the regional alternative scored the highest as well. Difficulty obtaining non-environmental permits, an initial NPDES permit, political approvals, in cooperation with local landowners. Some projects have more landowners to work with than others. But again, the regional City of Chico connection scored the highest. And lastly, operational, legal and regulatory requirements, stringent legal and regulatory requirements, potential for future increases in regulatory requirements, technical complexity and system flexibility. Land application and the regional option really scored close hand in hand, both at the highest there. So across all of the analysis performed by HDR, we come up with this final scoring system with the regional connection alternative, the highest scoring alternative. And I'd like to take this moment to really point out that if this council wanted to prioritize any one of these criterion higher than the other, say only thing that's important to us is cost, or the environment or the social impacts to our community, if we were to weight these any differently, the outcome would be the same, meaning the regional option is the highest scoring option no matter how we look at this moving forward. So with that, that's kind of all from the last couple of months. I do have some supplemental updates that we took away from your concerns as the council and moving forward. One, with the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board, they did issue their own independent analysis and support for the regional option with the City of Chico. They've been engaged with us since day one of phase one with the town and HDR. Again, they perform their own independent analysis. They recommend the town advance the regional option and continue to represent this as the highest probability for success in securing new funds to support the project as a state priority, and that's key. They can also function as an intermediary in Paradise and Chico moving forward. Jurisdictional certainty. Town council wants to avoid advancing any alternative, local or regional, through the EIR process only to find the project is no longer viable. And it's at this point I'd like to really emphasize that City of Chico staff and management has continued to support and represent the project as of mutual interest. And the City of Chico City Council participation and action has yet to occur, as without our action first, they really have nothing to consider. We do have to go first on this, but I do have some more information. So with that, I'm sorry, I wasn't ready for that, but I will transition to the environmental impact report funding. Our 2019 funding from the state and USDA for the environmental phase of the project is nearly exhausted as planned. And our 2020 Water Board Division of Financial Assistance grant has been secured for the regional option at $1.8 million. Of this, $300,000 has been set aside for the town of Paradise to include City of Chico as a subcontractor, and they can work with us to develop a connection fee, work on that MOU together that's going to govern the long-term operation of the project, and have a coordinated environmental impact report. So with the last council meeting, we definitely heard concerns expressed by the council, and the Central Valley Water Board has proposed to facilitate a joint committee with 2 elected officials from each jurisdiction, just as we were discussing participation on earlier committees this evening, other committees. This committee would provide ongoing avenue for both public and elected officials to participate, and this committee would provide defined check-ins for off-ramps or continuation in the process. So there's no commitment to go the full 18 months just to find out the project's not viable. We can work together between as staff, as elected officials, as the public, to meet and confer about the project status and the direction of the EIR, and resolve some of those issues moving forward and make sure that everyone has their level of comfort and certainty in the direction of the plan. As far as forming the committee, the Town of Paradise would develop a cooperative work agreement for the EIR grant I just mentioned. This agreement and selection of the council participants for Paradise would occur at the January 2021 meeting, and then we'd ask the City of Chico to do the same, approve the agreement we've developed, select their council members, possibly at the second meeting. That's a schedule we're aiming to communicate with them that would work. And then the Water Board would aim to facilitate the first meeting in February of 2021. So at this point, I do want to acknowledge LAFCO and the importance that their entity provides in this process. They review proposals for new cities and districts, and certainly this falls under to that definition. We're excited to work with LAFCO in the coming months ahead on this project, as we know their involvement is key. At this point, I'd also like to state for the purposes of the general public that we want to be really clear in our language here that recovery is not growth-inducing. When it comes to environmental impact reports, growth-inducing presents a lot of challenges, just as any development would. However, after experiencing an 83% population loss, we can safely say this project is not growth-inducing. We're excited to move forward in recovery. Pre-fire, we were looking at enhancing quality of life. Post-fire, we are just trying to get our community home and have a community to live in. So this, that's great. And so as far as the council action and recommendations, I promised Mayor Crowder We're looking for you to acknowledge the findings and recommendations made by HDR Engineering in consideration of their Phase 1 preliminary engineering and environmental review work for the project. Acknowledge the letter from the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board for their own independent evaluation of our options. And again, concur with staff recommendation to prepare a complete EIR for the Paradise Sewer Project with a connection to the City of Chico's water pollution control plan. And then contingent upon that moving forward, we are also asking you to authorize the town manager to execute an amendment to the professional services agreement with HDR Engineering to allow us to undertake this work. Finally, direct staff to continue to coordinate with the Central Valley Water Board to form a Brown Act compliant committee comprised of at least 4 members with 2 elected council members from the town of Paradise and the City of Chico. So at this point, I'll look at the schedule moving forward and what this project would look like. The environmental impact report is about 18 months from the green light to move forward. Again, we have the $2 million secured for that work and excited. The design and right-of-way, HDR's analysis indicates that when we're talking about federal advocacy platform, and people ask us, how much do you need to get to construction? $30 million. How much do you need to build it? $152 million. It's a lot of money, but for a generational project like this, it's a worthwhile investment for Paradise. I do also want to point out that the design and right-of-way phase of the project, this process is not entirely linear, and there's some potential to fast-track this project. And if we were able to secure the design and right-of-way funds to have some overlap between the environmental and design phases and get closer to construction. And so I'd say regardless of any avenue chosen, we have to continue working on that with our partners. And on the next slide, I've listed, we're working with CDBG-DR, administered by California HCD, Housing and Community Development, the State Water Board, Division of Financial Assistance, USDA, state legislation, and federal legislation. So with that, I think we do have some additional comments. We'll see how we're doing on the phone. We have John Butts with HDR Engineering, Clint Snyder, the Assistant Executive Officer for the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board, and then Kevin Phillips, our town manager, for some closing remarks before we open to questions. So with that, John, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, excellent. Yes, so HDR's role here was to develop data and professional input regarding these alternatives to assist the council in its decision-making. I think Mark has summarized our input and the results of our work very well. We do see regional solutions that are generally favored around the state. The challenges of taking on wastewater treatment are extensive and continually become more and more of a challenge as the years go by. I personally worked with the city of West Sacramento as it considered stopping its own wastewater treatment plant, abandoning it, and joining the regional system in Sacramento. City of West Sac was concerned about losing local control, but ultimately decided that handling wastewater was more of a liability than a benefit, and chose to join the Sacramento regional system. So I've kind of had a firsthand experience of a group working their way through these issues. Thank you.
All right, thank you, John. And Clint, can you hear me on the phone?
Yeah, good evening, everyone, Mayor, council members. My name is Clint Snyder. I'm an Assistant Executive Officer with the Central Valley Water Board. Our region is the largest of the 9 regions. We manage the Reading office, headquarters in Rancho Cordova, and of course, an office in Fresno. About 40% of the state we cover with our jurisdictional boundary. This is John was saying, we have a lot of experience in regulating wastewater treatment plants, from the largest, like Sac Regional, to some very small ones, the town of Portola, and systems that would be similar to something you would construct locally in the town. John's absolutely right. The liability, the costs associated with operating your own treatment plant just continue to rise and continue to become more complex and more sophisticated as time goes by. currently we regulate treatment plants for the most part on about 126 constituents or chemicals and parameters. That's likely to change in the near future. There's a tremendous amount of discussion about constituents of concern, things like antibiotics, medications, a lot of adverse impacts associated with things like that. That in kind would also fall into the mix of constituents that would likely be regulated at their wastewater treatment plant. The reason I bring that up is it's really important to have a population-based support those types of regulations, the testing, the sophistication of the facilities, and you really get that benefit through larger populations and partnerships like the ones being proposed tonight in regionalizing with the city of Chico. I recognize that there are no guarantees in this project. There never are. But if I can be honest, you have an amazing team assembled there in the town. You've overcome a tremendous amount of adversity. Thus far, you'll continue to do that. I have no doubt in my mind with the enthusiasm and skill set you have there in the town of Paradise that we can pull this off. The water board, myself, I have had conversations with my executive officer, Patrick Lupa. I've had conversations with the executive director at the State Water Board, her chief deputy director, the director of the Department of Financial Assistance, all the State Water Board, and Cal EPA officials about this project. And everyone is supportive with that, the regionalization concept and pushing forward. So just want to leave you with the idea that we're all behind you. We're all supportive of this project for many, many reasons. And while there are no guarantees, I think we can all put our best foot forward and see if we get this across the finish line for you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Clint. And with that?
Yes, thank you. From my perspective, being kind of new onto the scene here, this truly is the best project moving forward to get this accomplished. Being from another agency that did have to deal with the NPDES permit, it's not fun. Being from an agency that's been fined because we violated our NPDES permit, it's not fun. And those fines are mandatory maximum fines. There's no, they don't have any ability to kind of see if you can afford it or not. It's just, here's the fines, and then you got to deal with them. The regional approach, I feel, has a tremendous amount of success kind of built into it from a funding mechanism, not only from the state funding, but from the federal funding also. We've had discussions with USDA, we've had discussions with the state funding agencies, and everybody's on board for this. I think it's a win-win for the region. And also, I believe that the way that we're setting this up, to have council representation on a committee at the beginning, creates that ability to get out in front of problems early on, to kind of strip the politics away from it, so that when we're at the end of the rainbow here, it's a solid agreement, and that everybody wins at the end of this. So I really feel real positive with this project, and I truly believe Paradise will have a sewer at the end of this project. So thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. With that, we're all available and here for you and the public to answer any questions.
I have a comment.
All right.
I had a lot of concerns last meeting about the politics of this situation and our ability to really do something with Chico. I think that the design of this that you've outlined here addresses my concerns. I think one of the biggest problems we had in 2017 was that we had no formal mechanism to take anything to Chico, and we had no agreement with them to cover their costs. Mm-hmm. And this addresses all of those concerns. So thank you very much. I really appreciate you taking that seriously and finding a way to work through it.
Thank you.
I got some questions. So, and these are simpleton questions, right? The downtown area that you showed, none of which has been surveyed, right, is all privately owned. So is there some possibility in forming the district that maybe the district could survey all of those properties? I'm not looking for a gift of public funds. I'm just looking for, but, so let's say all of those pieces, everybody now that has a septic tank, especially on Skyway, that has a business, the septic tank is not in the front of the building, it's in the back of the building. So how do you get that plumbing, especially when you have buildings right next to each other, how do you get that connection? But that doesn't have to be answered right now. It's just one of the kinds of things I think about. So one of the concerns or one of the scoring mechanisms was the cost of potential of operating the sewer treatment plant, possible fines, additional fees well, doesn't the Chico sewer treatment plant, aren't they confronted with those same fears or concerns? Not fears, concerns?
Yes.
Right?
Yes, so I'll address the first question. We'll look into to see if there's any potential for survey synergy there with other projects as well if we're forming the district. But our transportation master plan should address a lot of centerline monumentation, making it easier for those to survey their property. Number two, your question was...
Well,
yeah. I thought that was three. I'm sorry. But,
no, that was three. No, that one doesn't matter. Mainly, it's
okay.
like...
Oh, number two, though, I think the fact that none have been done or that there's few, it justifies time is of the essence and getting people connected. We want people to build to the sewer. We want to have the sewer for them to connect to. So we have less retrofitting. I do want to say the district, we're looking to fund this project entirely from grant legislation, something that's not on the backs as far as capital costs of the district benefiting from the project. And so that's our charter moving forward. But the sooner we get that done, the less kind of complicated retrofits we could expect. And obviously the mains, like I mentioned, are going to be deep. They're going to be deep. Right. And so whether someone's on a hill, downslope from Skyway, that's going to be a challenge. If it's on the back side instead of the front, there's going to be challenges. But all of these things can be done and have been done in the past.
Don't have two more.
Okay.
Part of this recommendation is that we allow the town manager to enter into agreement. How much is that?
So it is about, it's in your agenda item here. It's 1.5 million over the next 18 months. And again, 100% grant funded for that work with HDR Engineering.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay. I missed that part.
No, it's okay.
Okay. The last question,
yes.
Promise, is MOUs. I understand those. What about a JPA? Kevin's laughing because he knows that my promise doesn't mean. Would not a JPA be a better vehicle than an MOU?
We've discussed that with John Butts on the line with HDR. There's pros and cons to a JPA versus an MOU. At this point in these flows, we're kind of like a customer, like almost equivalent to Chico State or Sierra Nevada being a customer as a whole. But I don't think we've crossed that bridge on what that would look like through the EIR process, whether JPA versus
so
MOU.
So it would be one, but either way, MOU or JPA, and especially with this design, I really like this design where we're going right to the treatment plant. We're not going through their antiquated sewer system. That's really wonderful. So, okay, that'll be determined further down the road.
Yes.
Whether it's a JPA or an MOU.
Correct.
Either one, though, it's going to be fair. I mean, it's going to be, we're going to be, they can't go changing stuff on us 6 months down the road or 6 years down the road.
And that, you triggered my your second question was about Chico's own cost for upgrades and fines and yes to all of that. The difference is they have an existing plant treating, I think 9 million gallons a day or 6 to 12, I'm sorry, million gallons a day and a ratepayer base to support that. So they're going to have upgrades. We won't be surprised when that happens, but the MOU or JPA will outline our share based on actual flow or a permit, connection that we've already paid for, and it'll be equitable. It has to be. It's a enterprise fund. It has to the cost to operate it has to match the revenue generated from it.
Okay. The last question is the sewer district that does not anybody other than me see any concerns with having that form? Does that not take 2/3 of all the properties in it, voting for it?
So at this point, for the language entering the EIR, I think the best way to represent that is that this is our planned sewer service area. I hesitate using the word district because we're not looking at financing across these parcels.
Okay.
And so when we get closer and develop through the process, and John, feel free to shout over the phone if I'm wrong there, but I think we'll have more time to talk about how that would look in the sewer service area.
Okay, because
Okay.
that was, I mean, I know residential properties that are within that.
Yep.
That, you know, you go from paying $35 a year for a septic tank to whatever it may be, even if you
Yeah.
do all the connections for free, to suddenly $50 a month for sewer and water. you know.
Sure. I think, we could see the $900 to $1,000 of pumping, every 3 years or 3 to 5 years, amortized over the monthly basis. It's expensive to maintain an on-site septic system. And so we're hopeful that with these grants and projects that it's going to be a good deal. It has to be.
No, it sounds like it. Don't
Yep.
get me wrong, it sounds like it.
Yeah.
I'll support it.
Great. Thank you.
So I think like environmentally, it makes sense to do this version of it. But I have to admit the MOU is the concern and what that looks like for our residents years down the road. So I think that's sort of the key at this point is how that's written, how that's structured, and how we can protect rate increases for our residents.
Yep. 100% agree. It's a huge task ahead, but one that I believe our staff, our partners, that we're up to.
So Mark, would this be something, we had a growth spurt or what have you? I mean, is it expandable like expandable of your own treatment system? Would they have the capacity for us to grow and to expand?
Yeah, so certainly as we move forward in recovery and designing the project, we want to build out what our highest potential would be for the sewer and have that be ready to meet the needs of the town's recovery. As far as the project that we're considering, it's with this defined area, and we can evaluate it moving forward as far as broader, if that became important at that time.
So is it possible that any type of agreement could limit our growth? Because that would also be a concern.
I don't know if I could answer that question. I don't see that. I think the way that John has represented the project sizing and how we get the wastewater to Chico is we can't just do one single pipe that would work for our tiny little flow today versus, and also be the same pipe that functions for our much, much larger flow in the future as we grow. And so that would likely be a dual pipe that would go down the alignment all the way to their plant. And we could alternate flows and keep those both usable or just use one. So I think that would, sizing the pipe right, provides us a lot of flexibility.
Okay,
of
and that'll be
those.
part of the study that they'll be doing for us.
Correct. We'll have more information like that and all of those answers for sure in the design component of the project.
Tina, any words?
Okay, so I have a comment from Ward Habriel, and he says that you can no longer say that Paradise is the largest community west of the Rockies without a sewer. A mini treatment plant within the town makes some sense. Sending a wastewater to Chico does not. Treated wastewater should be here within the town. The entire project is way too expensive, and there are not enough businesses here to support it.
Thank you, Dina.
All right.
Question?
All right.
I'll
Thank you.
move approval of the staff recommendation.
I'll second.
Motion by Jones, seconded by Crowder. Councilmember Bolin is absent. Councilmember Culleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember Tryon?
Aye.
And Mayor Crowder.
Aye.
Passes.
Thank you.
So, 6D.
Got it.
Committee consider waiving the reading of the entire Town of Paradise Emergency Ordinance 602?
Thank you. Good evening again. So this consideration item is to make an amendment to the hazard tree urgency ordinance, almost identical to what we did to the debris removal urgency ordinance. And that is to temporarily allow, for the duration that the ordinance is in place, the use of laydown yards by tree contractors for just vehicles and equipment only, no processing, on non-residential properties in town. We probably issued maybe a half dozen to 10 of them during debris, but they were really useful for those contractors to be able to have a place to keep some of their bigger mechanical equipment overnight. They had temporary weigh scales, things like that. We already have interest from one of the state tree contractors down in the industrial zone to do this, just to be able to leave equipment in town overnight. So you'll see in the amendments in the ordinance that there's some language in there verbatim what we did in debris about the use of use permits, what zones it's permitted in, with that added caveat about no tree processing, no vegetative waste processing. We just want to make sure that's clear to all the contractors, all the subs, that that happens outside of town. And so the council requested action is to repeal urgency ordinance 595 and replace it with this proposed ordinance 602. And if there's any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
Why are we not allowing tree and vegetation processing?
So that has always been, since day one of discussion, an activity that was always going to happen outside of town limits. We haven't been interested in doing that kind of processing here in town. We did have a conditional use permit or a use permit process that the private tree contractors could go through to open temporary yards, and we issued 3 of them, and only 1 came to fruition, and then ended up closing early just because of lack of materials to process. But for the state program, it was always going to be processed outside of town limits.
Why?
In discussions with the state, even when we were doing debris, as part of recovery, that is having those kind of activities happen outside of here. We're busy trying to rebuild, not process debris materials here.
Who made the decision to not have processing in the town?
The state made the decision early on with the debris removal and then with the trees also. And they wanted it to be off the hillside so there wasn't the issue with dust and everything else with residents, people trying to rebuild and everything else. And frankly, I felt it was a great decision. We don't need to be cluttering up our town with that. We need to get the trees out of here. We need to get the debris out of here and get our town looking right again. So that was, the state was really involved with that.
And I don't disagree with that, but what I do disagree with is you're making it more difficult for these people who are trying to get the trees down. If they are able to have some processing on their sites, which people went through it, and then at the end, they were told, oh, wait, you can't do the FEMA trees, after they went through the whole approval process, jumped through all the hoops. And
They knew that up front. They knew that up front. That
They
wasn't a
did.
question.
Yeah, but
It's
but
been
there's
that way
also-
forever.
There were stories both ways. We had Cal OES tell us that it was a town decision, not theirs. So there's been a whole lot of deception going on over the last couple of years.
It was the state's decision, and it is the state's contract with their contractors that tells them they have to take it out of town. They made that decision very early on, and the people who were opening the yards for private debris removal or for private tree processing knew that. They were just hoping that they could convince the state to use their property. But they knew from the beginning.
So don't confuse those two. State was always out of the area. The contractors were trying to cut a corner and do it in town.
But it makes more sense to have some of the processing in town because you're adding an expense. Plus, now you're putting these guys in a position where we have more trucks going up and down our road versus having them be able to, like, say, if they have a partial load, they can stack it until they get a full load, then take the full load down the hill.
Agreed.
And
Totally
so
agreed.
you could cut your traffic by, I don't know, at least 60%, I would think, by being able to allow them to do some of the processing here.
Certainly haven't seen the traffic on this, being out there every day on this, as I did with the debris removal. And the number of trees that we thought originally is greatly reduced at this point from
Because
what it
they've
was.
fallen already?
No,
No, because
well,
they're
no,
not
they're
rotating.
still, those trees are still counted even if they fell, but there was outlandish numbers. I mean, I heard up to 800,000, and it isn't even close to that. So it's, the state made that decision, we agreed with that, and went with it, and then the contractors are the ones that are trying to cut their cost and their time and their money and make an
Okay.
extra buck.
So
We used to-
just so that I'm clear, you're saying the state made the decision. What state agency was it that made that decision?
Callaway, yes.
So you're saying Callaway S made the decision to not have processing in the city limits?
Yes.
Okay.
We used to have a green waste yard, and we used to do processing in the city limits. Since the fire, we've not opened the green waste yard, nor have we done any processing in the city limits.
Haven't tried.
So, no,
Am I
don't
right?
interrupt me, I'm not done. Okay, please. I watched these debris trucks taking slash on the state program, because I live next to Clark Road, and I live there every day. And I watch them driving down the road with no tarps, not covered, blowing dust and debris all out on the roadway. So the state program that wants to protect us by doing the processing out of town needs to start covering their loads.
Am I right with Callaway S making that decision?
That was my understanding.
That
If
is,
I'm wrong, say something.
that is your understanding?
Yes,
Or-
I was not part of those conversations directly.
Okay. Do we have anyone here that was part of those conversations? Okay.
That would
Previous-
probably be Lauren. Yeah, and she's not here anymore.
Katie, were you part of that? That was before you? Well, we were in some of those meetings, but not all of them, enough to hear that decision. So the problem is, people are confusing what Cal OES says with what the contractors are trying to do. And that's the part that the contractors are saying, no, that Cal OES didn't say that, and that's
So just,
not true.
I mean,
Same
I
thing-
don't have.
Same
a
thing
do-
happened with debris removal.
Yeah.
And it was, I remember being in the room with them, and it was very, I got very upset. As you sat there and you told us one thing, and now you're turning around and you're not backing it up. And they said, we will back up what we said, and they finally made it happen the way that they said. That all the debris are going off the hill.
And that's, I don't have a dog in the fight either way, but I am really adamant about, people back up what they say, just like you said. And so today, still, I'm getting, it was the town versus it was Cal OES. So if you guys are telling me that it was Cal OES, and that is the absolute truth, that it was Cal OES that stopped any processing up on the hill, then, okay, then I guess that's the
But
answer.
the town agreed with their decision at the time. I mean, the council had no problem with their decision. In fact, we thought it was a good one. And so did the town manager. So they made the decision, but we were not trying to change their mind.
There were people in town during the debris removal, not the tree removal, but the debris, and managers of some of the garbage company was one of them. They had made a deal with the Crown Metal in Orville. They had made a deal with East Bay Concrete that was doing all the processing of the mud, that put in their $1 million scales. Caltrans shut that down. But those people were hearing the same thing from Caltrans, or from Cal OES. Some of those people were hearing the same thing. There was deals where we were going to benefit from some of the recovery effort by processing the concrete, processing the metal. And so I'm just saying that this is what went on in this town. People have heard it both ways. People have heard from officials at Cal OES that it was a town that didn't want some of this stuff to happen. So that's just one of the things that this council and this community is up against,
Yeah.
and this town government, because they've heard two different stories and there's a lack of trust.
Well, I will tell you right now, and you're talking about the one down there on Lower Clark, that was tried to ramrod in there without a permit one, without talking to Caltrans, and everything else happened, and they knew it. They got caught. And that was after they were told. So everybody I talked to, I explained what happened, I explained what went on, and there was, that was underhanded.
We
and I
did
was
end
very
up permitting
disappointed.
that one eventually as scrap and salvage for
After it
private.
already started.
Yes, sir.
And then Caltrans shut her down. So that was very sad. I talked to the head guy of that company, and that was very sad. Very sad. Yes. Yes.
So I'll move approval of the emergency ordinance so that we can allow these people to stack up logs and get these dead trees out of here.
But they're not stacking up logs. It's
Not stacking
only-
logs.
It's
They're not?
only
Equipment.
parking
It's only
their
equipment.
Vehicle and equipment.
What the heck are they doing with the logs?
They're hauling those
They're
out.
Why
taking
can't they
it
stack
down the
the logs
hole,
there?
whether it's a
There are
partial
log
load or
decks
not.
all over town right now.
Are you taking back your motion?
Yeah, I'm taking back a motion because I thought this was to allow this process.
Yeah, we need
We haven't asked for public comment.
Oh, sorry.
Do we have any cards, Tina?
Fort Haverhill, we just had another windstorm and trees came down all over town. Pearson was closed again for trees in the road for the fourth time in just a year because of trees that should have been taken down many months ago. Sending more surveyors with a clipboard and a camera isn't helping solve the problem.
Okay. I will now move to approve replacing number 595 with number 602.
Second. Excuse me, second.
Who seconded it?
It was me. It didn't sound like me. But
Can we amend it? Can we amend it to add logs?
My motion is not for an amendment,
Okay, good.
Will you take a friendly amendment?
not to add logs, no.
Roll call
This
vote.
makes no sense.
Councilmember Bolin,
Aye.
Councilmember Culleton,
No.
Councilmember Jones,
Aye.
Councilmember Tryon,
Yeah, I think they need to have a place to park their equipment, so aye.
and Mayor Crowder.
Aye.
Pretty sure.
Motion passes.
So, item 6E, consider amending the tenant lease agreement with the Gold Nugget Museum to include the Caboose Building in addition to the Depot Building in Paradise Community Park. And Colette.
Good evening again, Council. So the item before you tonight is a request from the Gold Nugget Museum, who you may know rents the Depot Building in Community Park from the town to use as an ancillary museum building. Of course, after the fire, they moved their operation to that building with our approval. Now they are looking to expand their operation there in the depot area, and they want to add the caboose, which is directly adjacent to that depot, to make some improvements to that facility and then use it as part of their museum and allow the public in there. So right now, the item in front of you is just to add the caboose to that agreement, and then we will work with them on the improvements that they would like to make to allow for public access. And so that portion would come later. And if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to answer them.
I do. I served for a time on the Gold Nugget Museum's Board of Directors, and this came up at our board meeting a number of years ago. Gee, wouldn't it be nice? And we looked into all of the ADA requirements to even, and there are parts of the caboose that would never pass ADA requirements. If you're in a wheelchair, you couldn't get inside the caboose. And it was cost prohibitive at that time for the museum to pursue. I currently am on the board at the Gold Nugget, or at the Paradise Performing Arts Center. When PG&E considered using our facility for their PSPSs, they sent a ADA expert to test everything, how much the concrete was above stuff. And so without knowing what their plans are for it, I don't know that I could support adding that to it, and then they'll tell us what they're going to do later. Like I say, when I was part of their board, there was no way we could afford to make it ADA compliant. It's not conducive for that.
So you bring up a great point, Councilmember Colleton, and this, what is in front of you is just for the lease agreement. Any changes that are to be made would come back for another approval. So the lease agreement specifies that no changes can be made to the buildings, and that includes the depot, without the town's approval. So anything that they propose to change would have to be approved by the town.
Yeah, my reluctance is nothing in this thing, they just said they want to add it to the lease agreement. There's no indication as to what they want to use it for, whether it's for, whether it's something you can just build an extra deck and look in. There's nothing. I have no idea what their ideas are. They want to open a bar, they want to put a coffee shop in there. I don't know. And I mean, that's,
Sure.
show
In
me what you
there-
want to use it for, and then
Sure.
I don't have a problem maybe with adding it to the lease, but they need to tell me why.
Sure. In our discussion with them, they are interested in using it as an additional museum space that is open to the public.
Colette, who would be responsible for the renovations to it, to bring it to ADA or whatever?
So that would be the Gold Nugget Museum would propose what changes they want it to be, and then the town would have to approve those and make sure they're in accordance with ADA.
So the museum would pay for the improvements?
Yes, yes.
Okay, well, with that being said,
Yeah, I guess when we look.
my feeling there is with that being
Yeah.
said, if it costs them $100,000 to do it, if they're doing it, it has to come to us for approval first. Okay, and if they want to spend that money to upgrade it and we approve them doing it, I don't see a
No, I understand what you're saying, Steve, and I'm in agreement with that. I believe that you would have to take a torch and you'd have to alter the caboose in order to make it ADA accessible. And I have a concern with that. It was donated to the town, and it's a historic relic as it is. And so to alter it,
But what Colette's saying is we would have to approve that
Okay.
before that could happen. Is that not correct?
That is correct. Any changes that they wanted to make
good point.
would have to be approved.
I don't,
Well, that takes
I
care
don't,
of my concern.
I don't see any downside for the town. We could add it to the lease. They're going to come back with whatever they want to do. If we don't like it, we just say no.
That's
I don't see a downside.
Is there,
If there is a way to do it, maybe they've figured it out in the meantime, I'd sure like to see it being used rather than just sitting there.
well, it's sitting there just like a monument. It's just like the flagpoles at the park. That's why it was donated, that's why it was put there. As it is, it's being used. It's a part of our history of the railroad that ran up and down. And I don't know if in the lease, if there's any provisions in there that gives the town the right to tell them they can't do something there. I mean, maybe there is.
There
I
is.
skimmed through the lease.
Okay, I was going to say, the lease is in your packet, and it is very clear that any physical changes to the depot currently, which is the current agreement, have to come to the town for approval, and that would be the same for the caboose.
I make a motion that we approve the.
We-
We have to ask for
Hang on.
public
We-
comment.
Oops,
We
sorry.
We got, Ward's got to talk to us.
Any cards, Dina?
I actually have no cards on this item.
Oh.
Okay,
So
Rose.
moved.
Seconded,
All right, then I'll second. Oh, did you already second?
yes.
Motion by.
If you want to,
Tryon-
that's fine.
No, go ahead.
Motion by
You
Tryon,
guys
seconded
convinced.
by Bolin.
I'm
Roll
in favor.
call vote, Councilmember Bolin,
Aye.
Councilmember Culleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Jones,
Aye.
Councilmember Tryon,
Aye.
and Mayor Crowder.
Aye.
Thank you.
6F, discuss the process and timing for establishing the new Measure V Citizens Oversight Committee.
So, thank you, council. The Measure C committee was formed, 10 years ago? Is that how long ago?
2015.
Oh, okay, so.
Time flies.
Yeah, 5 years ago.
It was a 6-year measure.
6 year, okay. To oversight, to have an oversight committee of the funds collected through the Measure C So just for history, Measure C is an additional 0.5% of sales tax that is collected and brought back into the town's coffers, and that is to be spent on public safety and public works. So with that, we have, I believe, quarterly meetings with the Measure C committee. I've attended one. They're very diverse. It's a very diverse committee. They are active in reviewing the expenditures and understanding what's going on with the funds associated with the Measure C. And so with this, we are now moving into Measure V. And so with that, the council has the opportunity to stick with the current Measure C, have a partial participation from the current members, or kind of revamp the whole Measure C committee at this point.
Do the current members want to stay on?
I believe that there has not been any rejection from them.
All of the committee members would like to stay on. There's maybe one who may not, but everyone else that was at the meeting expressed interest remaining on.
My question is, are they living in Paradise, or are they coming back to Paradise, those that are on the committee?
I believe that some of them are still in Paradise. There's one or two that are in Chico.
And plan on moving back, or, okay.
Good point.
So,
They're planning to move back?
Intent.
She shook her head yes.
As far as I know.
They have intent.
That should be a requirement, I would think.
Well, it's not a requirement, but I think it's important that either they're here or they are planning on getting here.
Yeah.
Because I don't want someone that's planning on planting themselves in Chico or Orville to
No.
be making decisions for Paradise.
so I was on the committee that selected the people who are on the current committee. There were 2 council people, and I can't remember, was it
I
you,
think
Greg?
Scott. I think it was Scott. You and
Oh, it
Scott.
might have been Scott. There was a lot of interest. It took an entire day. We interviewed 17 people in one day. I don't want to do that again. I think the people who've been on the Measure C committee have done a really good job, and they have been active and interested and read their material and do a good job. I happen to know that there's at least one who, although they still own property in Paradise, has no intent of moving back. And so I would like to propose that we ask them if they'd like to remain on the committee, but that there be a requirement that they either are currently living in town or they've applied for a building permit. These funds are to be spent for the benefit of Paradise residents, and I think we should have residents on the committee. And so then if we have any vacancies, then we could advertise for those vacancies.
And I would agree with that. I don't know that they have to necessarily have, I feel, going right now, but some sort of intent to come back.
What would be that? You have to have a metric that
But
can
if
be
you're not-
applied.
But if you, not everybody is ready to go pull a building permit today. I mean, you know what I mean?
Well,
As
should
long as
they
they're
be
committed.
should they be overseeing the funds for our residents if they're not?
If they're a
though?
Paradise resident and they're coming back, yes.
But I know of someone who will say they're coming back, but I personally know they're not going to. So I'm not okay with
Then
that.
confront them with that.
What about a time frame? In other words, they can stay on it if they pull a permit within a year.
Yeah, something like that. There's got to be.
That'd be okay.
Yeah.
You know, maybe
something
they're not
that
ready
way.
yet, but they have a year to make that happen.
If you want to stay on the committee, you got to either be here or have a permit within a year.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you know,
But
Okay.
Again,
That's something that's concrete that you can measure, so I'm okay with that.
and I would, anybody isn't planning on coming back, made that decision. Step up and say
Just
we're not.
admit it, yes.
well, why don't, maybe,
People are having a hard time with that.
why don't we, why don't we do it, why don't we, like, you know, have some kind of an interview with them? It could be virtual, you know, so you'd have to stay there for 17 hours. But I mean, you know, just to have them, have 2 people and have them say, you know, have them reapply. And have that be a question.
I think the current
That's a lot
one
of
has
work.
done really a good job.
Oh, I do too, I do too. But
On I'm doing it, and I think there's got to be a little bit of trust
Okay.
there.
I do too.
And,
I was just saying, if you had to reapply, that could be a question, you know, will you, you know,
well,
that's a condition.
I think we should, put it out there that if you don't, and I mean, we have no way of knowing, but if you have no intent on coming back.
Within the next year,
Well, we'd
yeah.
know a
Within
year
the
from
next
now,
year,
we'd
then-
know a year from now, right, if there was no permit pulled a year from now, and,
Oh,
you
absolutely.
know, we'd be able to say, well, sorry,
Yeah.
but your time is up.
Can't we just have our city manager let them know that there's an expectation that they are
Right.
going to plan on moving back to town?
We can do that. We
How
can
many-
definitely
Yeah.
make that.
How many are on the committee?
9.
9.
Are all of
Is
them
that-
to continue?
No, there was one that stated that.
So we're going to have to appoint somebody else.
Do we need 9? Is that enough? You
Yeah,
need-
that's in the law.
Yeah, it's a good
Okay.
number.
We don't want to break the law.
So then I suggest that we designate 2 council members to interview for the remaining slots available, and that we ask if there's a lot of interest, like you get 17 applications for the remaining slots, that we ask staff to screen them. So we-
I'd agree with that.
We can do that.
Any cards?
Any cards on this one?
I have no cards on this item.
Is that a motion, Jody?
That's a motion. We probably should see who's interested in interviewing.
What is your motion at? Can you
That,
state your motion,
that we
please?
ask the committee members if they'd like to stay on, if they plan to, if they're a resident or they plan to rebuild within the year, to apply for a building permit within the year. If they'd like to stay on, we'll retain them. So then whatever vacant slots we have left, then we would advertise for. And staff would screen those applications, and then 2 council people would interview the people left.
Second the motion.
We should vote on that, and then we'll talk about who's going to do it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so motion by Jones, seconded by Tryon. Councilmember Bolin?
Aye.
Councilmember Culleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember Tryon?
Aye.
And Mayor Crowder.
Aye.
Since Jody's so good at this,
Oh, great. I'll do it. I'll do it, yeah.
there you
You
go.
want to do it?
No, Steve wants to do it, and you
Yeah, no,
want
we'll
to
do
do
it.
it.
There's only 1 or 2 people.
The Steves.
It's only
The
one.
Steves, all right.
Do you need
I
a
don't
vote
think
on
you'll
that,
have
or
17. I saved you from 17.
do you need a vote on that, or just,
No.
we just appoint him?
Council
Good.
concurred to appoint
Good.
Councilmember Culleton and Crowder.
Okay.
We do concur. Thank you for doing that.
Okay, so 6B,
Yep.
discuss establishing PG&E oversight committee to monitor the funds received from the PG&E settlement.
Mayor, so just a background, the town received approximately $219 million and about 3 months ago from the PG&E settlement that was put into their bank account. We put that money into LAIF, which is Local Agency Investment Fund, which is a fund run by the state of California. It's a liquid fund, so it's very easy to move money back and forth. 2 months ago, the council approved hiring Meter Investment to invest these funds in the market. So to have these funds slowly move over to start to have them invested in the market. Last week, we did start moving these funds into the market. So just to kind of give you an idea of where the investments are, we've moved about 50 million over to Meter to start investing in the market. And we move those slowly because we don't want what's called market risk. So if you invest all at once, you have a lot of risk that you're taking at that one point in time based on fluctuations in the market. So you want to bleed them out as you want to do. So just kind of give you a background on that, of where the PG&E funds currently are.
But just for their information, there's very little, there's very little we can do with those funds, right?
The funds, right now, those funds are designated. So they're not restricted by any stretch. So there is a lot of freedom with those, but we are not encouraging freedom with those funds because those funds.
But where you can invest them into is
right.
limited.
Oh, sorry. From the investment,
Right.
portions. So you can only invest for a 5-year period. That's the maximum amount or the term, and you can only invest in very secure, fixed income investment. So you can't go and by Apple or Airbnb's going, their IPO's coming out tomorrow, so, we can go invest in that.
And
That's
that's state law.
That was going to be my question, is what is the risk level on these? And what did you say the amount was?
Say that again?
What did you say the amount was that we have received so far? in
219 million in the account from PG&E. 50 million of that has been moved over into meter to be invested into the market, which the market is fixed income securities, maximum term 5 years. So,
Okay. Thank you.
and that's based on our investment policy. So I believe back when these funds were put into the account, it was brought up through council of a PG&E oversight committee. So this is being brought back based on that recommendation from council to bring it back during this time when we were looking at the Measure C committee to moving into the Measure V committee. Part of the council's duty as a council is to be a fiduciary to the financial aspects of the town. So that is one of your main duties. So from an oversight committee, it doesn't strip any of those fiduciary responsibilities away from the council of being kind of the gatekeeper of those funds. And currently, there is kind of a pie chart that kind of obligated these funds into different areas of spending. So a large percentage was operational based on kind of some early projections on build out. A portion of it was for capital, because there's a tremendous amount of capital that we're doing, but a lot of that has local share match requirements behind it. And then the other part was just basically reserving for replacement of operational capital, like fire trucks, police cars, and different things that we're moving forward with as normal operation.
And that was done as part of our budget approval last year. The council approved that it was based on, I just want to give a little history if that's okay, Kevin.
Go for it.
It was based on our finance director's projections of how the town could continue to operate without tax revenue, because our 3 years of back revenue this is the last year.
It's expiring this year, correct?
Yes. So we have to find a way to operate and pay our police officers and pay our staff without much of a tax base. And that tax base is going to grow. So she did projections on how the tax base is going to grow and how much money we would need from the PG&E fund to stay afloat. And it got us somewhere to year 18 or 20. And the council approved that strategy for use of the funds. It was for operation of the town, for replacement of critical equipment, as you mentioned, so that we could get our population back, get our tax base back, and then be able to operate by the time we ran out of PG&E money.
Correct, yes.
The difference with the PG&E money and the Measure C money or Measure V money, that money goes for almost what you would call projects that police and fire and public works propose to the council. And there's in the measure that passed the voters, there are only certain things we can spend it on. So, and it requires an oversight committee to make sure that we spend it on the things the voters said they wanted.
Correct.
So it's really different than what we're trying to do, which is keep the town afloat. I'm not quite sure what a citizens advisory committee would do.
Trust. Make the citizens trust the town. That's what it's for.
So just going back to where we are currently. So I'm currently getting proposals from some financial firms to really do a comprehensive financial projection, looking at new data from what we have from a rebuild standpoint, what our revenue is going to look like, what our expenses are going to look like, and have it to where we're able to change the projections based on current data so that we can kind of really look out into the future and do these different projections, because we know we have 3 different buckets of funding coming in, or of housing, right? We have the people that were here before that are coming back. We have the people that weren't here before that are rebuilding new. And then we have the people that are still undecided, right? And where we get into that 5, 6, 7 year kind of time period, we're going to find out what those people are, or what their decisions are making. But in that period of time, their property is going to basically sit empty for that, where there is no tax base on that. So, and we don't know how, let's say they decide not to come back, then how quickly does that turn over? What's the housing market look like? You know, does the sewer system really drive up our revenue? You know, and we have gas tax that we're worried about. We have sales tax revenue that we're still unsure on. So all those variables will be able to change in there. But until we get that base, it's really hard to kind of create this reserving policy based on those funds to say, this amount of funds needs to be in this reserve, this amount of funds needs to be in this reserve, and this amount of funds needs to be in this reserve. So to me, to start a citizen advisory committee, even if that's the direction of the council that wants to go, there's really no game plan. There's really no direction that you're giving them to say, hey, here's how we have decided to do this. Now oversight that. There's really not that period of time right now. Where like the Measure C, there's a very defined scope. These items need to be spent on here. There's really not that scope at this point in time. So if my recommendation to the council is if they do want to move forward with a citizen advisory committee, that I would table it until there is some type of game plan that we can actually give that advisory committee to oversee.
How long are you talking about before we have this?
I'm hoping by March. I haven't got the bids back yet, so as soon as I get that, I can kind of get a time frame out. It's a very unique project from talking to most of the financial advisors out there. They haven't really done this before, so they're going to have to kind of create something to be able to look at, you know, this destruction and then, you know, kind of look at all these variables and put them in so that it's a usable item that can be updated. The other thing too is that as a town, we do a mid-year budget update that would be part of that. And then our budgeting process, like it was done already this year, would also take that into consideration of where these funds are and how we're seeing them kind of spent throughout that year. So there is that, you know, so it's not like everybody's in the dark here. You know, there's an opportunity for not only the council to be updated, but citizens are part of that process too, so that they have an opportunity to chime in and to really understand how those funds are being spent at that point in time. So that's my recommendation, and I'll take any questions.
I don't have any questions. I just, at least, we table it till that is put together. I mean, at least. Because even we couldn't sit there and look at it right now and say, this is what needs to happen. I mean, that's just, it's a shot in the dark. If we get to that point where that's in place and we say, yeah, it's something that we need a committee to look at, you know, I certainly don't want the town to not trust us, but that is our responsibility. That is our charge by the people that voted us in to look at the finances and make sure it's done right. And there isn't that real scope, but I would at least table this until we at least had that, and then we can make a better decision.
Yeah, I don't see detrimental. That's done. Decision.
I agree with tabling. I think if we're going to have an oversight committee, they have to know what it is what their goal is and what it is they're supposed to be oversighting.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Let me clarify my thing about trust. My whole idea why I went along with this, and I know when it got brought up and who introduced it, but my whole thing is my connection in the community is a lot of people want to be a part of the rebuilding of our town. Yes, we're elected to do that job for them, but the more things that we can, and it doesn't have to be a huge committee, the more things we can allow people to be involved, because even though they can come to the budget meeting or watch it on TV, or they can go to the website, people don't. You know, we know that from the tree program and the ROEs and the things, you know, all the things that the people don't do. So if we invite people in and it's an oversight, so they have no power. You know, it's just, it gives them some comfort. It lets them be a part of, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And it helps us to build some trust, because there's a lot of distrust in this country for all forms of government, both at the local level, all the way on up. And so I just would like us to be more open to let them be participants in our decision-making. You know, let them play. And so, but I agree with the tabling. I think, you're right, good point. But that was what I meant by trust. Let's just let some of our citizens be involved with us, that's it.
Do you want a motion, or do we need to open it for public?
We have, any cards, Dina?
I have no cards on this item.
I make a motion that we table this until we have some projections in place. So if we do decide to move forward with an oversight committee, they have something to work with.
I'll second.
Motion by Tryon, Crowder, roll call vote, Councilmember Boland,
Aye.
Councilmember Cullerton,
Aye.
Councilmember Jones,
Aye.
Councilmember Tryon,
Aye.
and Mayor Crowder.
Aye. Okay, 6H, approve the proposed new job description and salary pay schedule for a 40-hour senior supervising code enforcement officer.
Thank you, Mayor Crowder. So this is a continuation from last month where we talked about the breakdown of the Community Development Department. We're in the process right now of splitting the divisional duties amongst two department heads. We haven't actually started the interview process yet, but we have closed the recruitment for that second department head.
Did you get a good response?
My understanding is we had 5 applicants, one very promising.
And when do you start the interview, do you know?
I do not have a date yet, no. And so these are 2 positions that would actually fall under the second department head in the code enforcement division. Like we talked about previously, a supervising code enforcement officer, as well as bringing the office assistant or admin assistant in-house. Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah.
Next week? Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Didn't mean to wake you up there.
As the goal was to bring back to council some funding mechanisms for these positions. Typically, code enforcement is a general fund department and position. Town manager and I went over different scenarios and came up with a combination of funding sources where the senior supervising code enforcement officer would be brought in-house. So we released that from contract, and that would be paid through our enterprise fund, which is through private development. The office assistant, which we would also bring in-house, release that from contract, that would be allocated to the general fund. And then we would continue to supplement just as needed for additional code enforcement officers and use general fund allocations for that. And so on this slide here, it shows that just by bringing the supervising code enforcement officer in-house, that's a savings, a projected savings to us of just shy of $75,000 a year. Contract is nice because we can ramp up and down very quickly, but it does come at a cost. And so when you look at those positions that you know are going to be long-term, then it's really in our benefit to bring those in-house, and that's what these previous discussions have been about. For the office assistant, that would be a savings of just shy of $124,000 to the enterprise, and then the expense to the general would be just shy of $60,000 to cover that, because there's quite a difference in what we pay through contract versus what we could backfill with at town staff level.
Susan?
Yes, sir.
If we were to save $125,000 on the contract 23, and would the enterprise fund then backfill the general fund, that 59,000?
They already do an annual allocation to the general fund.
Okay.
Mhm. And so tonight, the council requested action is to approve the job description that's in the staff report for the senior supervising code enforcement officer, as well as the salary schedule to go along with that. And then authorize adding the Senior Supervising Code Enforcement Officer and the Office Assistant to the remainder of the 2020-2021 fiscal year, and the position control list.
Starting when?
Well, as soon as we get approval tonight, we'll fly for those, well, at least for the supervising
Okay.
position.
So probably January after the first year.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Do we have anybody in-house that could apply for these?
We don't anticipate backfilling from in-house.
I mean, it's an opportunity if we had somebody, right? Yeah.
Correct. The requirement levels, I don't believe, can be met in-house.
So this is not currently a position that's being done through 4-Leaf or anyone else. This would be a brand-new position.
The supervising enforcement officer?
Correct, yes.
We actually have what's called a code enforcement program manager through 4-Leaf.
Got it.
And that's
Thank
what
you.
this would replace.
Okay, that was my connection.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Dina, cards?
I have no cards on this item.
Move approval?
Second?
Motion by Boland, seconded by Colleton. Roll call, Councilmember Boland,
Aye.
Councilmember Colleton,
Aye.
Councilmember Jones,
Aye.
Councilmember Tryon,
Aye.
and Mayor Crowder.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council initiated item.
There aren't any 7As.
7B, council reports on committee representatives.
Confession, I missed my LAFCO meeting. I am so sorry.
Oh, my goodness.
I know, fire me.
In the corner.
You're going to have to start going because of the sewer.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I know. No, you can't go. It's on phone, and all of a sudden I looked at my watch, and it was an hour late, and I messed up.
The time change.
I know, but if we just go there, then it would be, I have to be there, but with the phone thing, it's just,
It's fire brain.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
We forgive you.
Thanks.
I attended BCAG and AQMD, which were really uneventful, but I also attended a meeting with USDA about the sewer. It was mostly about financing and what monies they might have available. It was a very promising meeting. Kim Van, who's the head of USDA for this part of the state, got very excited when she learned that we were going to take the action we took tonight, and said if we did that, that would enable her to possibly earmark some money for our project before the administration changes. So it was a very promising meeting, and I was glad to be there. You were there
Meeting,
too.
and the other thing that she was gather up some other three-letter agencies if they would join in helping find funding back.
Which we were hoping to have maybe next week.
I talked to Mark Spanicle today, talked to him, and busy, so they will set up something for next week. I was
I didn't go to any committee meetings last month.
Why not?
What have you been doing?
Because I didn't want to, I wasn't sworn in yet or sworn at yet.
Oh,
Doesn't stop you.
Yeah, I know.
Future agenda items.
I have one. I don't know how, I heard back after when was it, the car fire, that Reading, like, they waived permit fees or something. And I know there's a gift of public funds involved. So I want to do two things. First thing that's the most important is I don't know if it's a regulation or what, but I want to change burn permits. So they're seasonal. They go with the burn season. Right now, they're issued annually. So at the end of this month, if you have a burn permit, it's no good. and you got to pay another $25 or whatever. So I would like to see us, whatever it takes to have, how we could change that, if we can, and how we could do it, because I think it makes more sense. And then in addition to that, because it's been so hard on everybody, and we want people to, there's a lot of stuff going on, that maybe find out whether or not there's a way that if people signed up for their burn permit, that we could waive that $25 fee to encourage people to clear their lots and burn their stuff, and just to help people out. I know we put it all in there to stop leaf burning, but, and I don't know if that's a gift of public funds or not, but mainly I'd like to see, when you buy a burn permit, it's for the season, for the, from the fall to the spring, not how it is now from January to December, which, we should just change it, make it the same as the fiscal year of the town, from July 1 to whatever. I mean, you can only burn when you're allowed to burn, but make the permit so right in the middle of burn season, I got to go give the town some more money. And then if we could, and just as a kind of to help the people, if we as the council or we as the town government can say, look, we want to help, and this is a small way we can help, it would be nice. That's what I'd like to see brought back somehow on a future council.
I have 2 items, if that's okay. They're all looking at me like, oh my God. Number one is there a way that we can get, because we just talked tonight about the downtown district and how a lot of it's not surveyed and there's no property lines. Is there any way that we could get any type of grant funding that maybe we can do like standard survey lines throughout the town? So each of the survey companies that come in are using those standards that are set? Because I'm hearing that there are, like one surveyor, okay, and I just had my property surveyed over on the coast. So one surveyor will come in and he has his lines, the next guy will come in and go, oh no, the line's supposed to be over here. So I'm just thinking if there's any type of grant funding that we can get, that maybe we can just get some set markers throughout, some main markers out in the town, then that way each surveyor that's doing a line has a main mark that they can go to. Yeah. If that's a.
So in our approved transportation master plan with EDA, we do have a portion of that budget set aside for centerline monumentation. We are going to reset or verify all centerline monuments in Paradise and identify gaps where there's centerline monuments missing. That'll be good areas for surveyors to establish the plane, the survey field of where they exist and how they can go locate property corners. So that'll help having more frequent centerline monumentation. It sounds like that's where you're getting. But with Paradise, it's so unique with 11,000 different parcels, with so many different widths and everywhere, and some created by deed and some created by map. We've searched under every stone for grants to help make surveying more affordable and easier. Hence, Rebuild Paradise really stepping up and creating that map and working with surveyors across the North State to establish that map and explore ideas. So we have a plan to make it better. I don't know, based on the work we've done over the last 2 years, how much more opportunity there is. It's complicated, but I think this will help get us closer.
So even if we get, let's say we get benchmarks throughout the city, the town that are good benchmarks, you still have each engineering firm that can mess up from that benchmark to where they need to get to.
Totally, yes.
So, and that's been our problem in the past, is they get from that benchmark and they go out to your property and they've miscalculated something and I'm 6 feet in the neighbor's house.
Yep.
And that happened. So I'm not saying that because it happened.
Yes.
Let me tell you a story about the center line benchmark that was in the middle of Clark Road. And when we realigned Clark Road and when my surveyor bought the maps from the town, it showed that center line mark. But when they redid Cypress Curve, they moved it 25 yards on the side of the road, and nobody updated the $2,000 maps he bought. So I paid for 3 trips from Reading, and I was going to send a bill to the town, but now I can't.
So I have a question. When do you think those benchmarks will be put in and be able to be used by?
I'd say spring. That's aggressive. I'd say spring, June, into the fiscal year would be a good target. We're issuing task orders on the transportation master plan by the first of the year. And we have about a year on all of the deliverables, and we're trying to prioritize and slot everything in and get it done as quickly as possible. But that is one of the items that it's so unique from the other scope of work that it'll be operating concurrently. So once we select a consultant from our team, we'll get more ideas on schedule. But I'm trying to be
So you're looking at
conservative
7
here.
months before it even starts. Then.
No. I'm completion. No, we're looking
Okay.
to start in January.
Okay.
And then I'm trying to be flexible here and give you a date that I could back
Yeah.
up. So by the end of the fiscal year, but ideally spring.
So when you're done with that, there'll be some,
Additional
use your term, benchmark.
Additional
there.
benchmarks, yes.
Okay.
Additional benchmarks, verified benchmarks. There's been some that have been destroyed, not properly relocated, altered through, whether it's PID, PG&E. There's so many people working right now, and we really have a responsibility as the town to preserve centerline monumentation and make sure that we're doing a good job of doing that. And it really has not been checked since the early 90s. So
Okay.
we've got some work to do.
So we're hoping that they'll be able to start using them before too long.
Yes, that
Before
would
we
be the
get too
intent.
built out, and then it's like
Oh, absolutely.
your line's in the middle
Okay.
of your house.
Thank you. I just wanted, I had that.
Thank you very much. So that was one. Sounds like it's already going. Perfect. Thank you. Then the second one is I'd like to discuss a green waste yard. Because here's sort of my thing, we have in place that we want our residents to do weed abatement and things like that and clear their lots. But that currently they have to haul it all the way down to the landfill. And I think that if we could get a green waste yard going again, that would help our residents to, do what we want them to do with their weed abatement.
Totally agree. We all been talking about that, and that'd be a great thing to bring back up, I think, but the funding, so that's going to be the issue, funding of it. It's
And
not self-sustaining.
Yeah, is there a grant? I keep going back to the grant, but we seem to be doing well with those at this point. Is there a grant, or can Butte Strong or someone else help fund that for a period of time until maybe we get going?
It costs about $40,000 a month.
40,000 a month?
It's the
To run
grinding. It's not what it costs to collect it, it's what it costs to process it.
Process it, right? That's all
Yeah,
it costs.
because we were trying to do that shortly after the fire, and the town just couldn't come up with the money to do it.
So what
It
exactly?
was being subsidized by all of the garbage prior to the fire, and it's $40,000 a month. I mean, and maybe you'll come up with a different number, but that's what I heard.
We've tried
Thank you.
curtain burners, anyway, good thing to talk about, because we do need it. I mean, we agree. Nope, good.
Okay, town
Yeah, and I'll make it quick based on our time. Most of the stuff that we've been dealing with all month, you've heard about throughout today. One thing I want to give an update is on the COVID update. Obviously, we have had an outbreak statewide. We've had our tiers go from orange, I think we were in the orange at one point, down to the purple, and just kind of waiting for this lockdown. So we have identified all of our staff as essential, so that we are going to continue operating business. We are taking in protocols to protect our individuals from infection the best we can. We've encouraged staff that can work from home to work from home, to lessen the amount of individuals in the office. From the BRIC standpoint, we are still taking appointments. We are closed to walk-in at this point, and we are taking safety protocols at that point to make sure that the individuals in there are protected. There's contingency plans available if there is outbreaks that happen within the town, and we are making sure that those protocols are in place. So just to kind of let you know that that is kind of where we're at. If you do need to get in touch with myself, I obviously I'm here most of the time, but if I was to actually have an outbreak or be exposed, I would be working from home. My cell phone's always available. We are using Teams, though, for most of our staff meetings, so that even if, like, say, Mark's in the office and I'm in the office, we're trying to limit the exposure even on that standpoint. So we're using Teams as our COVID resource in a way. So that's where we're at with that. We are going to push our financial audit back a little bit, so don't expect that when it's normally here in December, which we're here today, into January. It will be pushed out a little bit just to help us facilitate getting in our current time. The sales tax, we are getting quarterly sales tax information. I was actually on a conference call with that. Really interesting to kind of see where things are moving, and they are doing an audit of items coming into town and making sure that those items are being properly taxed, especially with the Measure C tax, which is that additional 0.5. And looking at it from a kind of a global standpoint, we are getting that money. So we're seeing building materials coming in, and those building materials are actually getting taxed with that additional 0.5%, and they're from outside the area coming in, and so our Measure C tax, we're actually seeing that kind of outpace our sales tax. Kind of crazy. The other thing too is that there is a Wayfair lawsuit that was just filed by the state of California that was successful, and so anything ordered online that's brought into the state or into the town, we're actually seeing those monies come into, and they're kind of put into a county pool and then distributed out. So it's based on how much sales tax globally we collect, but there is an additional sales tax amount that we're getting from those online. Positive. And then just on the trees, I just want to kind of give kind of a shout out to our tree advocates and to Katie. This is a extremely complicated process, one that has never been accomplished in FEMA's history. And the way that they're communicating and getting out in front of it and just really being active with so many different changing landscapes, so much of changing, trying to communicate to these individuals. This is even more difficult than I think the debris removal, because so many people have kind of separated, right? People have made decisions where debris removal is still kind of fresh, right? And they were still holding on to their properties. Things are moving so much with this program, and it's so complicated. And the tree advocates, I watch them out there, and they're talking to individuals, and people are angry, are calming, and they have a calming effect on them. And Katie, with her knowledge and her just global knowledge of this, of taking this project on, has been just really awesome to see. So I just want to kind of make sure that she knows, and that from the council's perspective, knows how complicated this is, that it's not something that we just have the ability to flip the book open and this is how we walk it. We're actually kind of writing the book of how this is going to happen in the future. With that, I'll take any questions.
They're not only writing the book, they're changing, like you said. I mean, this is a fluid thing that's going on, and it's neat to see that they are being fluid with what they need to do.
Yep.
Even though they did come in, I won't go there, but
Let's not go there.
yeah,
Yep.
but they're here now and they're
question.
doing well.
How's staff-wise, our entire staff? And I know you can't, but how are we doing with like police and fire and the town hall staff? Is the virus impacting our staff very much?
There has been some impacts, but we've been able to, with our protocols that are in place, we've been able to deal with them.
Okay.
So we are moving forward with them. They have a really good protocol in place to make sure there's contingencies available to augment the staff that actually might need the time off or sick. So,
Good.
yep. So,
Because I've heard like Chico Fire had a whole bunch of.
no, we've done really well with, if there was a a case, that we limited the case pretty quickly.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, thank you very much.
Can we have a break?
We'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll adjourn now at 9:44, and when we come back, we'll be in closed